Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news, discussion, and of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works and the cosmere. I'm Eric, and joining me is Ian.
Hey, I'm Weird Rider, president of the Navani fan club.
Excellent.
And I would like everyone to join me in the Navani best initiative and post in the comments below if you agree that Navani is the best . And if you disagree, you're wrong. Unless your name is Feather.
We're starting good. We're starting solid. Also joining us is Alyx.
Hi, I'm Feather Rider, and as the long-standing president of the Renarin fan club, I don't appreciate the campaigning that is happening in our intro. Wow. Unexpected. I yield my time.
Also joining us is David.
I'm not here to advocate for anyone, but I'm Windrunner on the forums, and I'm happy to be here.
Also joining us is Shannon.
Hi, I'm Gray, and I don't have any particular strong feelings about which colon is the best. I just like them.
And lastly, we got Matt. How's it going, Matt?
It's going good. I'm Matt or Comatose, and Adolin is the best .
See, I prefer Adolin.
Adolin
What about Shallan ? Doesn't get a lot of attention, but
all right, guys.
A controversial choice.
It is Rhythm of War is out. I got my pin. I got my shirt, but you can't really see it very well on here. But Rhythm of War is out. We posted a spoiler-free review. So this is going to be the first of two super spoilery Rhythm of War podcasts. We're not going to have Dawnshard spoilers because there's so much to talk about with Rhythm of War. So if you didn't read Dawnshard, that's okay. But you got to read Rhythm of War. It's been, you have to. You've been warned.
We're going straight into end of the book spoilers.
Yeah, we're literally
spoilers are coming first. So if you're like, maybe I can get away with it. No,
you'll be sad.
You can't leave.
You will be sad.
Go finish
you will
right
be
now.
Sad. Yes. So, Rhythm of War. I don't know. Let's just start with Ian. What are your overall thoughts? And this is not going to be a spoiler-free section. None of this is spoiler-free. There's going to be 2 episodes, though, with the rest of the cast. And not
so
just
my
us.
overall thought is this is literally the best thing he has ever written. I don't think he can ever top this book.
Wow. All right.
I mean, he'll probably top it, but come on, Navani.
You've always liked Navani. And
yes.
I love Navani much more now, for sure.
Mm-hmm. It's so good. I love it. And like all of the characters are really good in this book. Except Ishar.
I mean,
We'll get into it.
yeah, we'll get into it. Alyx, what do you think?
I also thought this book was exceptionally good. I don't know if I can say that it is my absolute favorite just because like my Renarin loyalty, Oathbringer was such a strong Renarin book and that means a lot to me, but I loved the book overall. I thought the plots were super good, super interesting. It was amazing. It was wonderful. Strong contender for maybe favorite Renarin aside.
David.
Think
about this book like it's Elantris 2. No.
Wait, what?
No, it's a really good book. It's a really, really good book. I thought that it was what Brandon said it was going to be and felt very much like The Way of Kings and had a really strong setup for book 5, which is important. Mm-hmm. And I just really liked how much cosmere came into this because it's pretty clear that we're here. Like, you're going to need to start knowing about the cosmere here in a couple books, and it's just going to happen.
Yeah.
Or at least you're going to have some questions about things.
Yup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Shannon.
Hi. I really, really liked this book. This might be my favorite Stormlight book. It went so deep into character work. It was so strong on that front. It was so emotional, and it was really exciting in the sense that Brandon did a lot of stuff in this book that, you know, obviously he surprises me every single entry. But it felt like the penultimate episode of a really good season of TV where it's sort of like, this isn't the finale yet, but they're starting to like wrap up or like bring to the front a lot of storylines and plot lines, and suddenly they're all relevant again. And he's just like, here, just get everything ready for like the final moment. It just like, and I find almost that as satisfying as the finale itself. It's sort of like the way, it was just exciting the entire time, and I loved it.
Matt.
Expertly crafted.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. For me, it didn't have the high highs and low lows of Oathbringer. It didn't feel quite as emotionally dynamic to me, and I think part of that is because Navani was such a focus, and we saw a lot of her internal struggles, but she's not quite as much of a mess as Dalinar and Shallan are.
Yeah.
So, like, Navani struggled, but she was never like collapsed in an alley or like like it was. So it didn't have that emotional range that I thought Oathbringer had, but I still really enjoyed it. I think Brandon's writing is so on form, like all his parts with wit, which are always kind of where he shows off, were so good. And it's a very tight constructed book, and like other people have said, I think it's there was kind of a mid-front series climax in Oathbringer, and this is like a good book on its own, but it's definitely setting up a lot of pieces for book 5.
Yeah, this definitely feels like we are setting up for a massive thing for book 5, right? Like, and we'll talk about that, of course, but it's like, we're getting Kaladin, your issues, let's deal with those. Shallan, your issues, let's deal with those. Let's set up all the pieces so that we're ready to have just a massive thing. And man, we didn't know what the plot of this book was going to be.
No.
But it's like, the Fused are going to take over Urithiru. It was like, okay, that's the main plot. That we didn't guess that on our prediction episode, that's for sure. It's just ballsy. I really loved Kaladin's depiction of depression. That really affected me more than because Kaladin's depression didn't really affect me as much, but the suicidal thoughts really matched like what I've gone through, and so that really was impactful for me. I felt it was a very tight read. It's not as much of my favorite book because I still really like the Oathbringer massive ending type thing, and so book 5 I think is going to be right up my alley. But it definitely it was really tight and really clean to read, and it's just really easy to fly through this book, I think, even though it's the longest book.
Only barely.
Only barely.
Barely.
Yeah.
I mean, Stormlight books are Stormlight books.
Oathbringer does feel longer, though. You're right. Like this one doesn't feel.
I didn't think Oathbringer was a slog when I first read it. I'm like, no, Oathbringer's great. It's a great book. And then I finished Rhythm of War, and I'm like, looking back, Oathbringer's really slow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just by comparison.
Yeah, there are slow times. I think part 2 into 3 of Oathbringer is kind of.
Yeah, but like this, like you really get Kaladin's like, man, Kaladin, he just gets punched to the ground in this book. It's like, jeez. By the way, I do want to point out a wonderful YouTube comment on the Rhythm of War spoiler-free review that said, what could possibly be worse for Kaladin than him at Honor Chasm? And I'm just like, it's like, this is the book where he jumps. See, that's the difference. And it's like, ouch. So, that comment was very amusing to me, and I'm very excited to hear that person's reaction, and I hope Jesse, not my Jesse, responds to this here. So, favorite part. We're gonna go around again. I'm gonna start with Ian, and I think you're gonna say Navani again.
I mean, but specifically, like the sequence of scenes where she bonds the sibling, and she's like, it's like, well, like, because like up until that point, it was kind of the plan for Rlain to bond the sibling, and then like Navani is like, well, bond me, like I'm here, and the sibling is like, no, you're not worthy. And it's like Navani's like, no, lies. And it was. And then the whole sequence of like her singing the anti-void light tone, and then the two of them singing the rhythm of the tower together. Yeah. And I was just like, and it's like, I very early on started joking about like, oh, like Navani's gonna bond the sibling, like, yeah, it's gonna be a thing. And then like as the book went on, I'm like, it became more and more plausible. I'm like, oh wait, this might actually be a thing in this book. Like that's so cool. And then Brandon tricked me. It made me think Rlain was going to bond the sibling. So Brandon surprised me with something I was expecting.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, Sanderson.
Hearing you describe that, it's very similar to what he did with the Hero of Ages. Like where he kind of goes with the obvious choice, but
but you've misdirected to Vin and stuff. Yeah. Alyx, favorite part?
Oh, that's really tough. I think I'm going to go sort of in lockstep with Ian, but I'm going to go ahead and say Raboniel was very much a standout character for me. Mostly in that, when she's first introduced and you hear like, oh, she developed this like biological weapon, you almost get this idea of like, oh, she's going to be sort of like a mad scientist character and, she'll be super evil and stuff. And she really wasn't. She was a very nuanced character, and her whole dynamic with Navani was so mutually respectful of one another. And like, I'm so sad that I don't think we're going to get any more. I mean, who knows? Maybe Brandon's going to do something crazy and she'll come back somehow. Can't rule anything out. But I think this was probably her book, and she was just wonderful. She was great.
Never count out the Herald flashbacks. They've spent a lot of time together.
That's actually a really good point. Oh, yeah, nice.
I would love to see more Raboniel. She was wonderful.
I do love that scene where Nail's just like, oh, hi, Ulim. And it's like, oh, hi, Nail. What's up? It's all like, yeah, the Heralds will know Raboniel. But in my spoiler-free review, Raboniel is the new character who kind of steals the show, because she really does. Like, Raboniel's awesome. And I was like, no, she's dead. No, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. But that's a good point with the Herald flashbacks, David. That's nice.
There's a reason I decided to write her wiki article.
Yep.
Which hopefully will be done by the time this episode airs.
Yep.
The fact that we had like Navani outsmarting her to land a fatal blow, but then Raboniel like respects her enough that even as she's bleeding out, she attacks Moash to try to save Navani, and probably does save Navani's life. Like it was a wonderful culmination to their whole dynamic.
Like, just her whole like, no, I want to finish the war, but also like, I finally like kills her daughter. Like, this is really good and emotional. Like, a lot of depth to her for sure.
Giving Navani the title and like telling her what a respected scholar she is and how she's so like, they were amazing. Those
two were spectacular.
Such a good plot line. Loved every moment of it.
David.
Okay. Well, as the Kaladin fan, I'm just going to jump in with the obvious Kaladin stuff. So if you've read the book, you probably already know what I'm going to say. But there were two things that I'll hit briefly. And the first was obviously Kaladin and Hoid, the story about the dog and the dragon.
It's really
that
good.
Was great. Yeah, that was a great story. The last line about like saying that that there will be sunshine again, it's different from promising there'll never be darkness. Like, that was gold.
That's a lot. I just shivered remembering how I felt with that line. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and also that it's probably on Braze at the same time, and you're like, whoa, what's happening?
This is not good. Yeah, no.
Yeah, but
is that what's happening? I did not clock
think it
that.
Is on
Thank
Braze,
you guys.
Yeah.
That's probably a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other one, I was like, okay, this is my Kaladin scene. I got it, awesome. And then the scene at the end where he has the vision of Tien, like I approach books from an emotional distance, and it's like really rare that I have a reaction to a book. I was crying. Like I really was.
I cried too. I did cry too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it just the idea of meeting his little brother as a man, like it just killed me.
It's like, you're good enough for me. I was like, oh, so good.
if I think too much about that scene, I start tearing up.
Yeah, that's a really good scene. The Kaladin stuff is really good. The
It
pain.
really is. It's wonderful.
And also, one of my favorite Kaladin moments is him catching Leshwi and it's like cutting it a little close, son. It's like, a surgeon must be precise and timely. 10 out of 10. Love it.
It's like
I thought
using
Leshwi was going to
what your
die,
parent-
so legit surprising that he survived. It's great.
It's using what your parents taught you against them is always like the best.
Shannon.
My favorite part was when we saw Ishar's experiments on the table and
Uh-oh.
Speaking of experiments, there's a cat appearing for
She's
Alyx.
thinking about jumping. Hold up. Let me move to the... Come here, dolls. Hop down. Nope, there she goes.
okay,
So
that's
Shannon.
not my real favorite scene.
Okay, yeah, I figured. But like, it is. That's very much like a what the f is going on here, Brandon. Like you just threw this in the end here. Like what? What is this?
It was very powerful, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it my favorite. Well, this is a really hard one. First of all, because you guys have said some good stuff already.
I know.
I think it has to be like the dragon and the dog. That is one that's going to be with me for a while. With the dragon and the dog, it's Kaladin at his lowest. Like this isn't like a moment of triumph. This is just him like needing something to hold on to, and in that moment. And I had to cry and get up and walk around and stop reading the book for the rest of the night and go to bed because I was like, it was so much. I was like, I couldn't handle like the end of the story. And he's like, okay, but what's the real ending? What did the dog really say? It's just like, oh, no. Oh, that was so much. I'm like, I cried in this book more than I have ever in the rest of Stormlight combined. Like I loved Oathbringer. I did not cry during Oathbringer. I cried so much in this book. It was unreal.
Yeah.
I'm so glad Kaladin knows what dogs are now. Like this was so important to me that Kaladin knows that dogs exist and that they're
Boyd.
wonderful.
Boyd, give Kaladin a dog.
Oh man,
Kaladin needs a real fluffy dog, not an
What a-
asshound,
what a-
like a real dog.
it's just like 10 soon. Here you go, Kaladin. Here you
I
go.
know. Yeah, I'm waiting for all the fan art of the dog and Kaladin eventually.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm like,
Oh.
that's gonna happen.
yeah.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Matt, favorite moment.
Well, Raboniel was taken, but
I mean, you
she's
could
definitely
say the same
up
thing,
there.
like-
yeah, like she is just such a solid character, and I really hope we see more of her somehow because, like, she wins you over like that. I think expanding from there, I just really liked a lot of the fused stuff. Honestly, like getting to see the fused is not just the enemy, and getting some nuance to characters like Leshwi and
Leshwi!
Venli.
So good.
And like the comparisons between those three, I found very interesting, and it really complicates the situation. I am an Adolin fan, so I really I liked how Adolin's arc, even though it was very predictable, like it was like you were like, okay, Adolin's going to succeed in this task because he has to, but it still had some twists and turns I wasn't expecting, and I don't know, and I just related to his struggles with, you know, both not being who his dad wants him to be, but feeling like very constrained by everyone's ideas of him, meanwhile being like the emotional support person to half the main cast.
So true.
True.
Like his I think probably my favorite moment is the scene with the Star Spren in Shadesmore
it's
when
so
he gets
good.
Shallan to emerge.
Oh,
So
it's
good.
It was
really
just
cute.
like- You were just like, yes, like we do want Shallan to come out, and then she, like at that part, she's very much not, and then she just has to, and it was just like, oh, they get their little moment, and the Star Spren, I can just see it in my head, and it was
As it poses for them. Very dramatic.
That poses for them.
So
That's what I want to see fan art of.
ooh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, we
Oh.
need fan art of that. I
It's
will
like-
ask to get it to be a thumbnail somewhere.
Yeah, Adolin and like Shallan, like sitting and like looking out over the thing, like small in the corner, and then like in the distance, like the star spread.
Yeah.
Like I can picture it in my mind.
I love the Adolin and Shallan relationship in this book. Like that was like kind of what we wanted after Oathbringer. It's like we need to explore Shallan and Adolin's relationship more. It's like, and they do. We definitely have done that. Like there's so many great moments, but like
I know.
but I have to.
Hard to pick one.
There's a moment that just like read this book twice, and we chose. Oh, it's so good. Like
I'm so glad someone said it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like that moment is funny because I think from us talking on the podcast about like the recreants after Oathbringer, it's like this friend kind of had to be in on it, and that's what we all agreed about. But it was the actual execution that was just so good. Like even though that I already knew that. Like, I already kind of figured that would be true, but, like, none of the Spren knew that we're still alive, and so it was a surprise for them, and it's just, we gotta get... I think Maya's gonna be revived, book 5. That's gotta be it, right? Like, we're setting up for that. I don't know.
I just got chills.
I know, it's so good. Just, like, giving Maya that strength, right? Oh, it's good.
Real quick, I will say, as someone who wasn't really involved in that sort of theorizing and didn't have the idea that the Spren were in on it, like that was a really powerful reveal of like, oh, I never thought that they would have chosen to make this sacrifice, and like it's a whole new dynamic on the records. I'm sure there's readers who are not the theorizing sort who are in the same boat, and like it was such a powerful moment from like the reveal standpoint too. Was great.
What a great reveal. Like it's really good.
And I think what helped it pay off was it fit in so well thematically with some of the other things that we're bringing up in the book. Like there's a real theme of people who are disenfranchised or who are quote unquote powerless, and how people treat them and how they have agency. Like you have like the patients with mental illness who Kaladin is working with. You have the dead eyes who are not helpless. And that's also a theme with kind of Rlain dealing with some of the prejudice he faces. And so I think Brandon's kind of been seeding that message throughout, and then to have it tie together at such a powerful, pivotal moment was just so good.
Yeah. And the fact that the scene works, like whether or not you had that theory ahead of time or not, means like for me, like it worked way better than the end of Oathbringer with the like reveal that humans are not native to Roshar.
True.
Which like if you were part of fandom, it's like like it was not particularly impactful for me when I read it. So it's like, whereas this like was still like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like that was like cool, but not like emotionally impactful about the recreants. Whereas like the emotional impact is like the Dalinar stuff, I think, at the end of Oathbringer, right? And like Shallan talking with Hoyd, like those are kind of the big emotional moments in Oathbringer. Whereas the recreants one, it's not played like that at all, and it isn't. Whereas this is awesome character moment with Maya. And just a great reveal. Chills every time I have read that scene. So, like, love that scene so much. So those were favorite parts. What about least favorite part? Let's try and be slightly objective, even though we're giant Brandon Sanderson nerds. So you kind of expect that we're gonna like the books. But Ian, what do you got?
So I had a really hard time picking something. And then I realized that I can just give the same thing I disliked as Dawnshard, which is that Brandon keeps doing things that are very similar to things I have planned in my own stories. Totally my D&D game. So,
ooh.
Dang it, Brandon. You were capital C connected. That's what it was.
Apparently.
Tapping fortune a little bit.
Yep, a little bit.
It's funny.
Alyx. And is it going to be not Renarin? It's like not enough Renarin. 0 out of 10.
I mean, I wish we had more Renarin, but that's always a given. I think that the sort of sore point in this book was Jasnah and Hoid's relationship for me. I really like that we have her canon confirmed as Ace.
That was really good.
And I liked that Brandon gave us this annotation ahead of time, because we've been having lots of discussions with people even ahead of the book release about this. Their relationship it kind of doesn't work for me. And I think part of it is that hetero-romantic Jasnah is still kind of weird because it didn't fit the way that I was reading Jasnah before. But also, I don't feel like she and Hoid have great chemistry. Like, their scenes just kind of felt a little awkward to me. So that's probably the point of the book that I'm like, I kind of wish this was different. But it's also a very, very small part of the book. So, and the rest was amazing. So,
yep. David.
I have 2 quick things, one kind of serious, one not. The first is that I feel like the possibility of Kaladin becoming a thing jumped exponentially in this book.
That is true. It really did, though, with
when they're talking about
stuff.
Yeah, well, and just like there's a whole scene where she's like, there's lots of things that we don't know what Spread might be able to do. If you'll just focus, and then they kind of cut it off. But I'm like, oh, it still is going to be in the physical realm by the end of this, at least periodically. So I'm glad that she's not as childlike as she was in The Way of Kings. I'm not happy about it, but you never know. And then the other thing that I actually thought was kind of a flaw was I thought there were too many nodes. I was not interested in that part of the book, and it was just kind of like, oh, time for Kaladin. Like, Kaladin's emotional stuff was great, but I did not care for, oh, it's time for Kaladin to have a fight again, and then get more hurt, and then have a harder time. So it was just a little repetitive to me.
On first read, I can't say I agreed on that, because it was sort of like the momentum of the book really did work. It was just in hindsight when it was like, I think it could have been cut down. I would say the worst part of the Node storyline was the big gap in time when I had to go to sleep after things had gone wrong for the sibling, and it was just dead silence, and Navani knows she's failed and Kaladin knows he's failed, and we just sit there, and it was like, I'm an anxious person, like, not I try not to be, but sometimes it gets the better of me, and it was just one of those like things like, I feel so sick to my stomach about this, and it's sort of like, because of a pacing of an epic fantasy book, I know it's going to be like 100 pages or more until this is resolved, and I just have to sit here. So it was very emotionally heavy.
It's a heavy book, honestly. But
yeah.
Emotionally and physically.
Yeah. I think I agree with you, David. Like, it was fine for me on my first read, but on my second, it's like, this is a lot of Kaladin doing Kaladin fighty things, and I'm like, I mean, on the first read, it was totally fine for me, but it gets a little repetitive later, you know?
Yeah, I just didn't really like. The Fabrial device was cool, but I also kind of didn't care about it because it just let Kaladin do something he normally could do. So I was like, oh, I guess I'm glad we found a way that Kaladin can be kind of cool while not having powers. But it wasn't like, whoa, this is awesome for me. But his emotional stuff was great, so that's all good.
Shannon.
Yeah. Oof. I guess the only thing I can say, like, based on, except for like the Node thing, which I already talked about, is just I have to agree with Alyx. She got there first. She said it better. It's weird. It's kind of one of those things like heteroromantic Jasnah, and it's like I don't understand why her and Hoid are a thing. Like, it's one of those things like it's like sometimes I look at the other relationships and I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. I can see why this works, and I'll defend it. This is just one of those ones where I'm like, I don't get why this is here. Like, and especially because it's such a small scene, it could have so easily been removed. I'm like, why is this ended up being important? Is this going to be important in like 6 books? Like, like that it was so necessary for them to have this relationship. I don't get it. And it's like, it's one small scene in a very long book. That's it. Anyway. Yep.
Matt, least favorite thing.
Jasnah Hoid is up there for me. Or Jasnah. Jasnah Hoid.
What a rebel.
You can call her Jasnah.
That's true. You can.
Yeah. But I think in hindsight, it bothered me less. But at the time I was reading it, Adolin's trial was driving me crazy.
Yeah, why is that?
Because the honor spren trial procedure. It is.
Matt's a lawyer, by the way, in case you didn't know.
Afterward, I realized, like, that's the point. Like, the point is that their system sucks. But in my head, I was like, no, look, they're honor friend. Like,
they should be better at this.
They should be better at this. Like, the arguments against him are just like so bad, and I just wanted to stand up and say, like, you guys suck.
Anytime I get to the point of a book where I want to reach in and tell them how stupid their arguments are or how stupid they're being, I'm like, it's so frustrating as a reader, because like, if only the characters in the book would say what I think about this, and then the problem would be solved. And then
no, exactly. But then it resolved in a good way, so it bothered me less. The nodes thing was also a little slow, and the pursuer as a villain. He was a good threat, like that kind of like he could get you at any time. But as a character, I found him very uninteresting.
I'm glad he's dead and we don't have to see him again.
Yeah.
That's nice. Like, I miss Raboniel. I will not miss the pursuer at all.
It was satisfying that he was
single book villain.
Yeah. No, that was great. I totally agree, Shannon.
Yeah. He's a single book villain, played off really well. Raboniel, so much wasted potential.
Yeah.
Matt probably would have been a better lawyer for Adolin than Blended, who was conspiring with the prosecution. And that it probably didn't help that Kalak was insane.
I loved Kalak being insane. It's just like, that's a pretty good point. And the honor spread are like not happy about this at all.
But like, honor spread and like legal procedures being a mess, like, does make total sense, because they're the spread of like honor, not the spread of laws. Those are high spread.
Yeah.
No,
they're
so like all those ad hominem, like emotional arguments that just are not good.
That's not how you make an argument that's logical and makes sense. And it's like, because humans are bad people, and it's like, okay,
citation needed.
Citation
source.
It felt very much to me like that scene from Avatar: The Last Airbender, where he's in the village and they're like, we make the laws, I talk, you talk, and then I decide who's right. And then we like, it very much felt like that.
Yeah. Definitely played up kind of like that, for sure. I think maybe my least favorite part was most of the flashbacks. Like, I liked the flashbacks. Like, the flashbacks were just like fine, Like, I loved the flashback when they went to the prologue again. Like, that was great. Like, that was my favorite flashback. And like, I did like seeing Eshonai and Venli's past and like how they played off each other. Like, it was just fine. It didn't really connect that much with the main story. I don't know. Like it was fine, but nothing like Dalinar's in Oathbringer. But you can't always do that, I guess.
I will say though that I will take this whole book of just okay flashbacks for that last Eshonai flashback.
That last Eshonai flashback was that was really great. Especially with how it transitioned from like, no, I was merciful once as the Stormfather, and then we got the last flashback as the last chapter in the book. It was like that was a clean transition, Brandon. I appreciate that.
So good.
I agree, David, but I also wanted to say, like, the flashbacks, I think in this book, like in Oathbringer, the flashbacks were like almost like a centerpiece, because they were exposing this big mystery of what happened with Dalinar's with B, right? And also just how Dalinar came to be who he is. Whereas this book, it felt like the flashbacks were kind of an afterthought. It was like Brandon's like, oh yeah, and I need flashbacks because that's part of a Stormlight book. Yeah. And so he put them in because he needed to, and they were good. But they weren't like, if this wasn't part of the Stormlight Archive series, I think he could have omitted the flashbacks and the book still would have been fine. Whereas you could not omit the flashbacks in Oathbringer.
Yeah, right. Like, I will not be surprised if people are like, I don't know. I think he's overdoing with the flashbacks. It's like, I kind of see where you're coming from there.
Yeah, I definitely agree that like Eshonai's final flashback and Venli and Kholinar were amazing, and the rest were just they were okay. And I feel like part of the problem is maybe just we knew too much stuff out of them already. Like we knew a lot about what Eshonai and Venli's relationship was. We knew a lot about what Venli was sort of doing behind the scenes. And so we got to see some cool stuff about what their culture looked like before the Alethi got there. But it was like, this is cool background info, but not getting like cool big reveals. And yeah.
I have two things. One is that I did like that the Oathbacks. The
flashbacks. No, that'll be a thing in book 8, along with the Dawnbacks and you know the you know, and the Shardbacks, obviously.
The quarter shards.
Yep.
I like that we saw Venli's descent.
Yeah.
Because like she did start from like a noble point in the beginning. Like she wanted to like protect her family. She wanted to like heal her mother. But like then it's like she kept taking a step further and further off the path until she got to the point where it's like, oh, like what am I even doing with my life? But I wonder if the issue with the flashbacks not feeling as integrated with the story is that while Venli has an arc in present day, is like it's really Navani's book.
Yeah.
So there's a disconnect, whereas past 3 books, flashbacks is coincides with the main character.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a thing.
Yeah, and I do think I saw a wob where I don't know if it was Brandon's original intention to have so much of the listener stuff in Words of Radiance. There might not have originally been a plan for those scenes.
Okay.
And so I think that this was supposed to be, you know what the listeners were like now, really. And then it's kind of like, it just didn't work out as well. And I do think we lumped our 3 most interesting flashback characters in the first 3 books. And I don't know, some people might care about Seth, but I don't care about Seth.
I mean, I'm interested to know what's going on.
I will care. I know when I get there.
Yeah.
I want to know about Shinovar, but in terms of like the characters that I am interested in seeing their past, we got 3 of them right off the bat.
I also think this is a function of the fact that our 3 main characters have now had our 3 main flashbacks. And you know, I think this is just going to be a thing that happens for also with book 5. I'm not going to comment on what the back 5 will look like. I'm just like, I can't even picture.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, I wonder if like it might be the same thing. Like if there's going to be like 3 main characters like that are stand out above the rest in the back 5, like maybe it'll be the same thing where it's like, it feels weird when we get to like the not main 3. I don't know.
Maybe. Like there was nice lore in the flashbacks. Like there's a lot of interesting stuff there, but like it's like
It's a function of 3 main characters, but 5 books, 5 book arc.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. Like if we hadn't had the Eshonai interludes in Words of Radiance, these probably would have been a lot more interesting and powerful.
Yeah, for sure.
And also I will say I care a lot about Szeth all of a sudden because as of reading this book, I realized he shares an inordinate amount of personality traits with one of my favorite D&D characters that I play. The guy who is my profile picture on the 17th Shard Discord, by the way. And he would say things that were very similar to things my character would say because he's a disaster. And I was like, oh no, all of my love to you now, all of a sudden. How did this happen? I didn't care about Szeth that much before, but
happened in between books 3 and 4, and then
weird little personal thing that happened with Szeth there. Anyway.
I forgot to mention my other favorite thing in this book.
Okay.
And I don't think it will surprise anyone on this show. Ba Ado Mishram is present. The plot of book 5 is tracking down Ba Ado Mishram. The amount of lore that we got, like, actually, that was one of the best lore things in this book, was just like, for people who weren't paying attention, Venli's like, I don't know what had happened with Ba Ado Mishram, and Ulam's like, let me tell you what happened. And it's like, you can get that from Oathbringer. But like, it was nice to have it explained if you weren't paying attention to the epigraphs, like probably most people. So, Biodomistrum, Shallan is going to be hunting Biodomistrum in book 5, and I think it's gonna be awesome. I'm very excited by this.
Agreed.
Although, didn't Oathbringer set Shallan up to hunt Syanat?
I was gonna say,
Look,
And then
we've
we've had
really
promised Shallan hunting the Unmade before.
So I think the thing is that, like, Oathbringer had so much Unmade stuff that Brandon's trying to, like, switch it up a little bit. I think we're going to get a lot of Syanat and Biodomistrum and probably another Unmade. Like, I imagine we're going to have a really, really, really giant fight that is going to be bigger than the Battle of Thaylen Field in book 5. So I think we'll see more of the Unmade there.
Syanat interlude was wonderful.
Oh, that part was great. Yeah. So we
So
do
good.
need more. This book is about fixing our main character's emotional states so they're ready to do stuff in book 5. It's like, all right, Shallan, you kind of have a grasp on things. Great. Kaladin, you have a grasp on things. Fantastic. Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, which is good because we only got 10 days for the 5th book, so that's good.
Apparently.
Apparently.
And
It's
that,
gonna be a heck of a 10 days. I'm just gonna say.
Yep.
that's something I'm stressed about for book 5 is how much room is there
Yeah.
for character growth? Because like
I don't
that's
know.
one of my favorite parts. Like how much room can they grow if it actually only takes place over 10 days?
Yeah.
We just gotta dump the whole cast into the spiritual realm, and then they can have like months in there and then come back and only days
Easy.
pass because there's no
Easy.
time in the spiritual
Easy.
realm.
What I want to know is there enough time for Shallan and Adolin to get back to the physical realm to even hang out with our characters?
Yeah, it is kind of weird. I guess, like, Dalinar can perpendicularity them back, but, like,
Someone's made a timeline. Josh.
You
I
have to
hope,
find
but-
them, though.
Yeah.
My wonder is like, is the 10 days going to be the entirety of book 5? Is this because it's book 5 is going to be more like Words of Radiance and Oathbringer, where it's 3 more defined books, or is the 10 days just that first book?
Yeah.
And then
Or,
you
like,
have,
the first part of it.
of the first part, which
Yeah.
might be part 1 or parts 1 and
like
2.
in the 3-book structure
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
that Brandon does.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's
Mm.
possible.
I definitely
That-
expect Brandon to play with our expectations on what book 5 is going to be. So
Mhm.
expect the unexpected, I
But,
guess.
Yeah.
I think it's going to have to at least be later, just because like we know we have to have the whole Dalinar, Seth, Kaladin plot like happen. You know what I mean? It's like that is going to take up screen time. We can't kind of like skip forward in the first
Seth
part.
is
and be
going
like,
to
"We
succeed
saved
in like
Ishar."
8 days and come back and save
I
the
have
day.
Nightblood. I am just killing all the Shin. It's like, that's just what it is. And Kaladin's like, yo, maybe we shouldn't like murder everyone, Seth.
The hard bleach kind of cleansing.
Well, it's not bleach because it's black.
It's true. Anti-bleach.
And anti-bleach. Oh yeah, there's so much insane stuff. I did a video on 10
Anti-bleach
crazy things in Rhythm of War, but like anti-investor, what is happening? There's so that's a podcast. Basically everything in this episode is going to be a full podcast at some point. So,
Oh yeah, everything. Everything.
but you know what we should probably really talk about? Taravangian being Odium?
That was so scary. I never thought Brandon would do
Book
this.
4! Book 4!
Why would we expect this?
Like book 5, maybe, right? But like, no. It's just like at the end of this book, it's like, yeah. We won, and it's just like, oh no, this is really bad. This is very
No.
bad.
He could
Yeah.
save everyone.
And Taravangian would. That's the thing. He always was like, I will take the burdens of everyone. I will do the bad things so other people don't have to. It's like, oh, this is not good. This is not good. And the passion.
Now that you have the power to do incredibly bad things.
I have always hated the philosophy of the diagram, and I thought it was a really bad moral take and a super bad idea. And so now the fact that Taravangian gets to be a god is like horrifying. He's gonna diagram the whole cosmere, and that's gonna
will.
okay.
His diagram will
Yeah.
be much better.
Dalish is afraid too.
That-
No.
I really like I've been saying all along that like Odium's like a part first arc
You have been
villain.
saying that. That's
Like,
true.
I don't think, and I still don't think even Odium, I don't think he's going to be an issue in the back five. I think they're going to be
Whoa.
dealing with something else. Yeah.
Whoa.
I was really excited for Taravangian's like decline, and I was just like, yes, just like retire out, just
Dale's
go. And then he like somehow catapults himself into plot relevance again in the biggest
Just a
way.
little bit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, I don't like you. And then secondly,
Mhm.
I really hope that cultivation is still the one pulling the strings
Yeah.
behind him, because if all of a sudden he like one-ups cultivation, because like I'm gonna be like, no, like this is making like these original shards less interesting because it's just like the Taravangian show. So
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say. The whole book, I was like, "Goodbye to Taravangian. See ya. It's been
Goodbye.
nice." Like,
Throwing the diagram in the fire. Get
Run
out
the
of here.
diagram
Get
first.
out of here.
First interlude, yeah.
yeah, it was a good reversal. But I think, like, I'm sad about Ray's. Like, I was interested in Ray's, and I wanted a little more Hoyd and Ray's stuff. So, like, that's a thing. But Dalinar and Taravangian have philosophically been the fight of this book series, and so it makes sense that it
Yeah.
would be those two at the
It really
end.
does. Yeah.
It does. So, when Taravangian started like plotting again, like I was actually very excited and like, oh, like he's going to like help out with Dalinar. Like, is he going to become like Dalinar's squire? Nope.
Nope.
Didn't
Not
become a
exactly.
squire. Nope. Mm-mm.
Definitely not a squire.
Not exactly.
I know. I want to see so badly what Renarin saw when he came to Taravangian and gave him that one last chance, because
Yes.
he showed up and he offered him a different path and he did not take it.
yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what Taravangian would have seen if he took Renarin's hand right there. What vision would he have gotten, and how would that have changed things?
Mhm.
I will say, I think hearing you guys talk, since Taravangian is such a foil to Dalinar, him becoming Odium is really affirming the Dalinar will become honor, like, pathway theory. I feel like, you know, like it's like it just feels right, like that
Mhm.
after all these times, them like having these philosophical debates about leadership and power, that they're the two that become
That's
Well, that would be a spread human relationship. Just throwing that out there.
that's all true, Matt. But like the epilogue of this book is terrifying, because Hoyd now lacks. Like Hoyd knows lots of things. Who knows how much Taravangian like manipulated with that, with like the memory stuff. And I was talking with Jess, and just imagine, like, whoever, like, Odium actually was going to choose to be champion. I guess he was, like, getting Kaladin, right? Because Kaladin's eyes, like, turned weird color at the end. It was a little weird, but regardless.
It was definitely indicating that Kaladin was supposed to be the champion. There were things about that.
Regardless.
Oh, we'll fight it out.
We'll fight it out.
Taravangian
That'll
is
be a
much
fun one.
smarter than Race. And
Yeah.
whoever Taravangian chooses, I think is going to really mess up Dalinar, like a lot. Like, just imagine going up to the top of Urithiru, and Dalinar's like, wait, and like Taravangian's there, and Dalinar's like, what the crap? I thought Taravangian was dead. And so, like, maybe Dalinar is gonna think that Taravangian is going to be Odium's champion, and then, like, it's just, like, a total, like, reversal, and, like, the shock of that is going to be really bad. There is no way it is going to turn out well for our heroes. I still think there is high probability for more than one of our main 3 cast members to die in book 5.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
possible. Yeah.
Oh, I think at the end of a series. Definitely for sure. Someone's gonna die. But I was gonna say, I thought this was such a fascinating thing for Brandon to do, in terms of everyone was thinking about Taravangian's compassion and how that was going to like redeem him. as a person. But what I think what happened in this book was sort of like training Taravangian to think of his compassion the same way he thinks of his intellect, in a way that compassion isn't necessary. It's like I think cultivation misstepped there in terms of I think this was a mistake. It just made Taravangian think about compassion as something unnecessary, like a tool that you can use and turn off and put down when you don't need, instead of something like that's necessary to the human condition. I think Taravangian's compassion, like the fact that he was like full compassion almost those last days, is not an accident. You know, like something was going on there, and weirdly the compassion might be the bad part.
Yeah,
Which
everyone was.
We were always like, he has a good side and he has a bad side. You know, he's super evil when he's intellect, but no, he's just kind of all around. The compassion doesn't necessarily make him a better person.
And it gave him that connection to Odium. I was like,
being compassionate, like that's such an interesting thing to say. Being compassionate doesn't necessarily make you a good person. What a fascinating.
Yeah,
I remember, like, I really liked compassionate Taravangian as a person for a while. And the fact that, like, this book then took that and turned it on its head and made that a very odious thing that allowed him to ascend in that moment. And I also find myself wondering now, like, he always thought that his intelligence versus compassion was random each day. And I'm wondering if, like, cultivation was specifically controlling what level he got, so that when she saw this was going to be the day where he was going to have a chance to put him at his most compassionate. I do think she's bitten off more than she could chew, and this maybe looked like a good plan on paper, but I don't think it's going to be a good plan in the long run.
Yikes. Nothing good is going to happen here.
Huge yikes.
Yeah.
I think Taravangian hasn't made his move yet. Cultivation doesn't know yet that what she's done.
I think she's got. I don't think she's not prepared though, because she kind of says like, "I was hoping I could make you into the sort of person who could bear this power better than Ray's," and so she's got the idea in her mind that she might have failed in that task.
She must surely know the horrible things Taravangian has done. Like, very aware of that, right? Like, yeah. I imagine she has some counter moves, but I don't think it's going to like go like great for her. Even still.
Yeah, I think she's underestimated him for sure.
My biggest issue, I think, as I was saying, with the elevation of Taravangian is both there and in the epilogue is like cultivation and Hoid, I feel like are both put on these pedestals kind of. And then for Brandon to just be like, oh, actually, like Taravangian is like can outwit Hoid and is smarter than Hoid and is also maybe outsmarting cultivation. I was just like, so now Taravangian is like the ultimate big bad, and I was excited
at least
about
one more book.
Yeah. Hopefully though he's a front five and we're dealing with something else in the back five.
Well,
yeah, I was kind of surprised by how seemingly easy Hoid got. Like, he didn't expect it to be Taravangian, but also this was still the contract he negotiated. So I'm like, that's not something that Odium could have done. Like, did he not put in a loophole that like, don't attack my memories? You know, it seemed like he had just kind of not made a very good contract, probably.
Yeah, but like, if you've known someone for over 7,000 years and know their personality and actions for thousands and thousands of years, it was exactly what happened in the epilogue. It's like, wait, I didn't expect you to like act that way, and that was the problem.
Yeah.
Right? And Taravangian didn't realize that like, I don't know. I'm not terribly worried, Matt. There are some aspects that even though Taravangian, I don't think he's like big bad evil, but like it's showing that no shard is like pure evil. Like, if anything, we got rid of the one that's like the most vindictive asshat, right? In race. But I'm not like terribly worried that Taravangian's the big bad. Like, there's a lot of shards. Oh, by the way, 4 shards named in this book. You know, don't forget that. We did a podcast on that. That was last week's. But you know, no big deal. So I'm not worried about that. But I don't think Odium's gonna change hands again. Like, I I think it's not going to just be front 5, but I think like there's ways for cultivation to hurt Taravangian. There's ways for Taravangian to hurt Dalinar in cultivation. Like book 5's gonna be crazy. Like the amount of weird, crazy stuff that happened at the end of this book that's gonna matter a lot in book 5. Dalinar could legit just be effused in the future. That's possible. Like what? Like Dalinar could be one of Odium's commanders in like a later book in like Attack Scadrial or something. This is actually possible.
Like a Hessi's Mythica about Dalinar the Fuse.
Yeah, no. So there's a quick Dawnshard part that was relevant that I'm just putting at the end, and this will be in front of it, and so you'll know that it and you just don't listen to that part, but.
Sorry, we just couldn't stop ourselves.
No, I know. That's the problem.
Yeah.
To the audience. Just
on the like Dalinar potentially joining the other side, becoming a fused sort of part of the contract. I've been rereading Oathbringer, reading to my sister for the first time, and I think it's a point at like Gavilar's funeral scene where Dalinar is, having a bad time and asks one of the Ardents, like, what would happen if we won the war for the Tranquiline Halls? And she misinterprets and is like, oh, don't worry. I'm sure the Almighty would find new places for you to conquer and new conquests for you to have. And I was like,
wow, you're totally right. Yeah, that feels so Odium.
For Vornism worshiping the Almighty being honor, that's shockingly similar to Odium's plan for humanity on Roshar. Actually.
Like, you're gonna be my one super undying super soldier, and you're gonna go around and kill everyone in the cosmere, and everyone in the cosmere is gonna know Dalinar Colin's name as
Yikes. Yeah. So that was a little, fridge horror moment reading that one in hindsight.
That's true. Yep. So obviously Taravangian is actually, we are going to do a dedicated Taravangian podcast because holy crap, we could go on for easily 2.5 hours talking about this, the implications, cultivation and stuff.
And we will.
We will. So let's maybe talk a bit more about Kaladin, who is really pushed down as far as he could possibly be pushed down with the Siege of Urithiru. Like rereading things is just like, oh, you thought you were going to be a surgeon, but everything went so wrong. Oh, no.
Listen, let's talk about part 2, because what Kaladin did in part 2 was amazing.
Yep.
They did the whole, I'm going to reinvent mental health on Roshar. Was like, I could have read the entire book being about that. Like, I could read a whole novella about just reinventing what, like, making mental health treatment better. And like right now he only knows how to like handle like depression because that's what he has, but it's sort of like the whole like, hey, how are you treating these people, shoving them in the dark room? What about people who do this? What about people who do this? And it's just like shove them in a dark room so that they don't get disturbed. And it's sort of like Kaladin being like, it's not that no one's ever questioned this before, but that Kaladin has like the authority and gumption to go change, like, because it's like, because it's handled by the Ardents, it's like there's a religious authority kind of like involved there, but like Kaladin has the freedom to act outside that. And it was just like, he's gonna go and try and say, hey, maybe people with depression should be in the sunlight and talk a little bit and we'll work out our problems like a reasonable way.
Yeah, definitely big agree on. I wish we had gotten more of Kaladin helping people with mental health. Like the invasion plotline was wonderful, but I am sad that was like, it was such a strong start in part 2, and then we had to leave it because now we're under siege. And I feel like we're probably not going to have much time in the last 10 days to go back to that. But yeah, it was, I love that was a place that we took Kaladin to, even just for a little bit. It was really, really good.
I do think, though, that there is hope that Kaladin will spend the time gap between Series 1 and Series 2. If
that's
he
what
survives.
I was thinking.
Yeah. Like, I think
Hopefully.
I think he's agreed to help Dalinar on the side mission, but Kaladin's basically like, I don't know if I'm going to go back to the fight. So I think he's going to put on a tough phase for these last 10 days, but I definitely think that that's where he's heading. Is we could find him in 10 years, like an accomplished like mental health professional.
Yeah, like as like the leader of the field. Yeah, I'm like I was thinking that. I didn't know if I could find a way in between book 5 and 6.
Yeah,
let's do it.
I think that I really liked part 2, but I also like that it wasn't an easy fix. Like, you be a surgeon, and I like that the surgeon wasn't quite the right fit either, because that's what his dad wanted. But he still had the issue where he had a lot of trouble calling it and not like internalizing it when which is, I also loved how his oaths could play into like mental health and like protecting people and admitting who you can't protect, and how that could.
Dalish agrees.
Still play in.
So loud tonight.
I thought that was someone saying, "Well,
no, that was the cat. That was Alex's cat, which you've already seen on screen if you're watching the video.
Definitely Dalish.
Yeah.
But then also, it didn't. I'm not sure where Kaladin's going to end up, because Adolin and a couple others had some good points that Kaladin likes not the capital T thrill, but he likes the rush of combat and using his skills and besting people. Like, especially you see it with when he's fighting the heavenly ones, and they do have this kind of more honorable form of combat. Everything is capitalized now. But like he has a bit of an athlete persona that he likes that part. So I think it's going to be really interesting, Kaladin finding because he has gifts in this area of mental health, and it's really cool, his ideas and what he's pursuing. But he does have that side of him that enjoys
he's a warrior also
aspect of the spear, even though he can't deal with like all the death and all that part of it. So
actually will be interesting arc book 5 for him, because he's like solved a bunch, but it's like, where are you going to go from here?
So first up, I just want to say I hate Heavenly Ones as a title. It does not make sense that the Alethi would refer to their enemies as Heavenly Ones. Like, Shanium is just a better term. But this is transitioning a little bit away from like the mental health issues, but it's still Kaladin related. And it goes back to something that got mentioned earlier, which was the idea that Kaladin as Odium's champion, which that was not at all the impression I got from that scene. I have no idea what it meant.
Can the people who have read it once get a quick what scene you're talking about?
When Kaladin kind of loses it. Like when he's defeated, and Moash is like, "Don't touch him. Like he will take care of himself." And then Lesian touches him, and Kaladin kills Lesian.
Kaladin's eyes aren't blue, right? Yeah.
They aren't. Oh,
Can I read a line?
That part.
And that's one of the reasons that Odium is so desperate. Is that his second gambit for a champion has failed again.
Yeah.
But
because that's what he says.
But like, I thought the gambit was Kaladin to kill himself, not for Kaladin to become the champion.
No, Moash says there are two paths. He's either going to kill himself or he's going to give in to Odium's pain and join
so
the
like
void.
That was Moash's thing. Like, if Kaladin doesn't give in to Odium, then I have to do the morally right thing and kill him, because like that was that was Moash's thinking. It was like, if he doesn't give in to Odium.
And
I was so surprised. I wasn't tracking when Odium like came in a rush to Taravangian, like, "Oh, my champion is
right."
I didn't know who he was talking about. That makes a lot of sense.
Yep, that actually does make a lot
that
of sense. Because I thought he was talking
trying
about
to groom
Moash.
Kaladin.
Yeah,
I thought he was going to be.
Yeah, I was like, "Is the blinding? Moash isn't going to be the champion because he's blind now?
He's going to be a demon hunter now."
Okay, that tracks. I did love the like brutal Kaladin of like the way that he killed Lesian at the end.
That was like, very brutal.
A side of Kaladin we have never seen, but not gonna lie, I was a little bit into it, because if anybody deserved to just like go brutal, it was Kaladin. He needed that moment.
Remember the bit when Leshwi like really like pinned Kaladin against the stone and is like, "What are you doing?" And, like whispers in his ear and is like,
"Oh, Leshwi is a good ship."
It is really good, and I just want them to make out. I don't even care for the anyway, but it was a good moment. That was.
Yeah. She's like, "What are you doing?
What are you doing, Kaladin? You're gonna die."
I really liked Kaladin's fourth oath, even though we kind of figured that this would be his oath. He can't protect everyone. Like, I think that's what everyone
I'm
kind
going
of
to say
thought.
we didn't kind of know. I think we straight up knew.
Like, that was the whole thing. But, like, still, it was another scene of, like, even though we kind of expected that, like, it was still done really well. Like, I love just Dalinar's, like, I'm connecting them, like, uniting them, like, what is happening? And then this weird TN scene. That'll probably be a podcast, too, at some point.
Probably. Yeah,
Well-
I loved how simple the oath was. I feel like a lot of people in trying to write what they thought Kaladin's oath was going to be, like, a lot of us just overthought it. Like, it didn't need to be super complicated and super, unexpected and life-changing. Like,
No.
Everyone's
good, simple
first
oath
instinct
works.
is always right, and and then in 3 years they were like trying to like make it. We were like, let's make it into like a 2-sentence long. Everyone's first instinct is just like on the money. Like,
But-
that's all.
But it's like in the execution, just really wonderful. Love that scene. So there's another part in Kaladin's ending. Rip Teft. Rip. And his
That
friend, by the way. His
And
friend can
really
die now, so,
heartbreaking. really
It was-
heartbreaking.
but it was so beautiful. It's like that Teft can die knowing that he is loved. And that's
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, it was a very triumphant ending for Teft of, he
Versus
kind of
Moash.
won.
Oh.
even though-
Yeah.
That's-
He died, but he didn't lose.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. He got to know he didn't fail again. He never went back to the fire moss.
And
But,
he
oh
was
my
happy
God.
at the end.
I
Like,
didn't see it
Cinderella made him
coming.
happy. Yeah.
And of course, it's like looking back, I'm like, oh my God, it was like all the scenes he got with Fenderana leading up to it. And I was like, oh, of course. The genre savvy people will get it. But
Yeah.
Their relationship was perfect because they're just like snarky old people, like
Yeah.
complaining about the young people
Yeah.
in the room.
There was
Yeah.
one line moving up to it, and I can't remember the specifics, but it was something about how, like, Teft thought that Fenderana made him happier than he'd been in a long time. And I was like, I really don't want to believe that that's going to be the end, but I think maybe that's the line that shows
This
that
is
it's going to be
casting
the
us
end.
forward
And
here.
it
Yikes.
really was.
Yeah, I was just like, Teft, swear the ideal. You're there. Just do it. You don't have to wait for Kaladin.
That's true. That's true.
Oh.
But it was still very powerful, but also
Mhm.
really scary how Spren can die. That's a legit thing that the Fuse know how to, like, make this. And I was just, like, thinking about this, that, hey, this whole other plot line that I'm still not quite sure how this is going to connect is, hey, we persuaded the Honor Spren to bond people. I'm like, yeah, maybe now's, I mean, yeah, I know that plot line was doing that, but it's like, this is a little yikes moment that it's like, yeah, no, you can die.
well, it goes both ways now.
Yeah,
So now,
well, that's true.
yeah,
That is true.
It's true.
This will
It
be the
has
final
both ways.
desolation, the last one. It's like, yeah, I guess it will.
We're playing for keeps now. Oh.
it's like now death for these immortal beings is actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another sort of Kaladin satellite character. We got a lot more Lirin in this book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Their relationship was
And-
great.
I know he's kind of a controversial character. I know Shannon and I have talked about this a lot. I really loved Lirin. I thought he and Kaladin's like foiling was really great, and their sort of fraught relationship. I really enjoy Lirin as this like very stalwart pacifist who isn't very nice about it. I think that's a really interesting character trait that he has, and how much he sticks to it.
I'll go after.
I think, yeah, it's as I enjoyed their dynamic, and I enjoyed Lirin as a person actually. So
I have been waiting for Kaladin Lirin stuff since those book one flashbacks, and I am glad that this book was about that in a big way. I'm glad Lirin survived. Like, that's fantastic, but I've been waiting for this for a long time, and I love that scene at the end of part 2 with Lirin. Like, because you just hate Lirin, but it's like, oh, I know where you're coming from, and so it's like, I love crap like that. It's like, no, you did this, that is not okay. And then at the end he gets the painting of the tattoos.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. And like that's what triggered like the brands to be healed.
Yeah. Liren took on the brands and Kaladin healed his finally.
Oh
Yeah.
wait, Kaladin's brands are gone.
Yeah, they
Oh, I
are.
missed
It is
Yeah.
honestly, I think it is still a little weird, but
What I find interesting is the parallels between Liren, Kaladin, and Dalinar, Adolin.
Mhm.
Good point.
Because both of them have that kind of, I want to remake my son in the image of me, but better
Okay. Sure.
Mhm.
angle, right? In different ways. I'm just
Yeah, it's like the children not being the children their parents want them to be. Because
Yeah.
also like we get that with Syl and the Stormfather in her interlude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah, true.
And like a little bit with Jaxlim and Venli and Eshnai.
Oh, yeah.
Like
And
it was like
that's
a
kind of a
nice little
theme.
leitmotif like throughout this entire
Mhm.
book.
Mm.
And it kind of
Yeah.
ties back into that theme of agency, right? It's the
Mhm.
agency in the parent-child relationship, and parents
Mhm.
not always giving full credit to their children's agency to make their own decisions and find their own
Mhm.
path.
And guess what book this is? The Will Shaver book about freedom.
Hey!
Hey.
Yeah, because
Whoa.
agency, with Venli,
we found it.
That's
Yeah,
true.
that's what this book is about.
Yeah.
Guys, Brandon Sanderson's so smart.
Yeah, 'cause
smart about
I don't
that.
really think about the
Wow.
themes of the things very much. Like, I'm much
Mhm.
more of a plot thinker. Like, I just don't think about those things.
I think theme can be as strong as plot sometimes.
Oh, no. I totally agree. It's just not a thing that
Yeah.
I actively think about. That's all I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't like Liren. I think it's just like the fact that he is never as vulnerable as Kaladin is. He doesn't really apologize like the same way. Like he stands on his pride a lot, in a way that Kaladin is not capable of. And it's sort of like, yeah, it's parent-child, so there's like an inherent power balance, but it's sort of like acting as if they're like being equally bad to each other. It's like, I'm fine with the pacifism. I'm fine with being a staunch pacifist, and I'm okay with him not being a nice person, but he's not a person I like, and he's a bad parent. And it was like, like the end of part 2 was like screaming rage. It's sort of like, you don't kick your kid out to the curb like that. Like it's like, you don't do that.
Yeah. That's true. You don't do that.
Mhm.
I agree. I appreciated the relationship dynamics playing out on screen. I enjoyed that, but Liren as a character, I agree with that I have a big problem with his inability to compromise.
Yeah. He never does. It's sort of like he never quite, even at the end of this book, lets go of the fact that like he still in his heart thinks he's right, and is sort of like, it's just so frustrating to me. It's sort of like, listen, you can try to be a good person, but sometimes you fail, and it's sort of like, you don't get to stand on, I'm a good person who tries and fail, but still stand on that pride of, I'm trying to be a good person, and that's all that matters. Yeah.
But like that's why I think like, the Hesina interlude is very important.
Hesina's great.
Like because like she like we see from a viewpoint that like does love Liren, but does not agree with him, and like trying to get him to like realize that. But like I will, on a positive Liren note, I did like his humor in this book. About
He's
like
got a
him
good
like
dry humor.
exercising like his sense of humor and like getting a good like price for it on the market. I'm like,
That's
yeah,
a great
that was
line.
great. That was a great line.
I was into him at that moment. That was part 1. That was before thing, like, he it was a great scene, and then he immediately ruined it. So
Yeah, I think the cool insight that we got into Liren in this book, that was like a frustration of mine that they like kind of got to by the end, was just he was so like, he was a pacifist, but he was so defiant against Rashoni. You know what I mean? Like he was his classic stubbornness, and I just didn't understand why he kept just like humbling himself before the fuse. Like he just like kept like accepting anything that happened to his life as it washed over him, and I was like, what happened to him? And then I really like the context of Tien's death. and just how much now he's like, I can never, like, I'm just gonna hollow myself and not lose anything ever again.
Yeah, because
like
I think he realizes that was a mistake, right?
Yeah, and I do think he's frustrating, and I do think he's not a very good dad. But I liked it because I think a lot of times, like, you know, Kaladin and Laren are kind of struggling. You know what I mean? Like, they're never going to quite see eye to eye, but that's life. You know, I liked it.
That's actually really perfect for the thought that I had. Was I think the Roshon dynamic of he defied Roshon and therefore lost Tian was really like figuring out that was why he was acting this way was really what made him click for me, because I just really gravitate to characters who are very afraid and sort of have a lot of pain about their past, but try to pretend that it's not. Laren just pretends that this is just a conviction, that this is just the right way to do things, when in reality, he's acting that way because he's had these awful experiences in his past, and he's trying to pretend he's not afraid. Oh, no, this is the way that we should live. This is the way that we should do it. And it's actually like a very traumatized response that he's trying to pretend that he's not having. And I find characters like that super interesting, and I found Laren very engaging because of that.
I agree. Great. We talked about Kaladin more than in our Rhythm of War predictions podcast. So if you listen to that Rhythm of War predictions podcast, there were some comments. We didn't talk enough about Kaladin. How would we have predicted the plot? We never would have predicted it. We don't know. No. This is the main plot. I still don't know what he's going to do in book 5 other than go to Shinovar and do stuff. Like, I don't know.
Something.
Anyway, we got to talk. We have not talked about Shallan at all. We got to go talk about this entire other plot line that is just totally not this Your Hero. Shannon, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I am not a person who likes Shallan very much, like, and it just like has been steadily degrading. It was
that's true.
I liked her besting Way of Kings, and then in Words of Radiance, I was like, oh, she's like, this is a fun plot, but I hate when she interacts with Kaladin. And then in Oathbringer, it was like I couldn't read her scenes like more than once. This was like the most I've liked Shallan in a really long time. Rhythm. I almost said Rhythm of Previews.
Hey, you can go listen to our Rhythm of Previews, and they'll probably be Rhythm of War reviews. Branding.
Yeah.
Hey.
Love it.
Yep.
Rhythm of War is like the most I've liked Shallan in a really long time, and I actually found what I thought was I had a problem with her personas, but actually I really liked how it presented in this book. So I'm like, actually, I think my problem before wasn't that she was like having dissociation, or that she was having, she had this like split personality thing. It's like, I don't think that was actually ever the issue. I think my issues with her are probably different. Like this was really engaging. Veil and Radiant were actually not, they didn't feel as much like intruders in this plot. It was like, I actually felt like the real balance, like that was being described, and I was like, okay, yeah, I could see, even though that's not how it turned out in the end, I could see this working for Shallan as a character, like moving forward, like as like after she healed and developed, and got some of her trauma dealt with. Just like she just really worked for me, this book. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of, they could have been like 3 stable personas, like if like the memories of Testament had been revealed earlier, but because like they had been kept hidden for so long, it's like Veil like had to pull the nuclear option. Is like, okay, like the only way for you to like confront this is for me to go away, which was like fascinating.
Well, and on that note, I loved the interplay of the like different, because like Radiant was kind of keeping some things back and doing some things, and then Veil was kind of managing things on her end, and then Shallan, who like actually I think knew everything in some ways, right? But kept retreating back.
Yeah,
retreating back and being like, no, I know what this is, and I don't want to go here. And I loved the twist with Testament, because like Shallan's, people who have been on the Shard for a while know this, Shallan's chronology with her oaths and with pattern has been the subject of so much debate.
She's the fourth though. She's the 4 of those. She has played and is just repressing it. And
And now it's like, okay, no, now we know exactly what Shallan's progression is.
Do
It's-
we? Do
Oh.
we?
I mean, I think the point is like it wasn't supposed to make sense, at least.
I guess.
So-
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm really interested. I've always felt very strongly that that the true Shallan is a composite of the three personas, right? Like that's what Hoyt has said. That's the core of her thing. And so I'm really interested as now that Veil is reintegrated, and the promise is made that Radiant will also do that eventually. I want to know who the Shallan that comes out is, because I feel like we still haven't, like, we've seen a lot of the traits, but I want to see the person that is going to emerge when this is over.
No longer
and kind of like how
repressed.
she handles herself with some of Veil's skills and some of Radiant's skills, because she's going to have all of that now.
I would love Shallan to be more confident as a person and
Mhm.
just like stop second guessing herself. Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, but I loved with the twist with Formless is because
Mm.
that's who Shallan thought Formless was going to be. It was like the combination of everything good about her, Veil, and Radiant, right?
Yep.
But the issue is she's still just pretending, and she's taking all these strengths but divorcing them from the weaknesses when really she can be this composite character, but she just can't leave behind who she is and what she's experienced to become that.
Yeah, it's also like her trauma of like the good version of me is the kind of person who will murder. Like that's like that is a trauma response of she thinks that to be a confident whole person it means that I have to be okay with being a murderer, and like I'm a monster and I'll just be okay with being a monster because that's who I really am. And it's sort of like she's so traumatized she can't recognize that as the lie.
And that her confession to herself, that part of the allure of the Ghostbloods was the escape rope.
Yeah.
Like to be like, oh, I have all these good things going for me, but I don't deserve them. And so if I pull the trigger on this and become full-blown Ghostblood, then I won't be married to Adolin, and I don't need to
worry
about not deserving him.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of self-sabotaging tendencies and like that. And I've always wanted part of me, Shallan, to go full Ghostblood. So I was really examining myself in that moment and being like, yeah, no, you see me and I see you. And I'm glad you rose above that because it was really inspiring.
Yeah, like as a reader, I don't enjoy that. I'm like, it's so frustrating because I'm like, you could have gone the other path. Why would you take this obviously bad path that's going to ruin you forever? It was just Alyx, sorry, did you have something?
I was just going to say, as someone who very much enjoyed the Ghostbloods and Shallan dynamic, I'm sad to see it coming to an end. Like, I don't think the Ghostbloods are gone, but we're definitely not going to have the same interaction with Shallan as we have in the past. But I do think it was a good conclusion to that sort of the plot line thus far. And I think it was probably for the best for Shallan. I think this was one of the healthiest resolutions that we've seen for her.
Yeah.
Loved the Testament reveal. I didn't see it coming. I didn't guess it ahead of time. And it was just heartbreaking and worked really well for that.
I did not get that there was a Testament reveal. I did not actually understand what was happening in that scene.
Yeah.
It was in conversations after the book. I was like, that's not Shallan's Spren though. So what's going on here?
Yeah, no, but it was
no, like it was like that was actually not clear to me as a reader. So it was because when Testament is first introduced in the book, it was like a misreading of like what actually happened. It was like so many years ago, this Spren went away and I found them last year as a Deadeye. It was sort of like in my head chronologically, the Spren was made into a Deadeye last year. So I'm like, oh, well, that sucks. So like, it was sort of like, I know what Shallan was doing a year ago. She was at the Shattered Plains. It was like,
I see, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was just like, this is another Spren. That's very unfortunate. I don't know why this is a thing. So like, it was very confusing. I just like skimmed over and I was like, okay, I'll figure that out later. And just,
oh man.
I'm like, wait, afterwards, that was Shallan's Spren as a child. And then, then it clicked into place and I was like, oh, okay.
And also the foreshadowing of why Pattern was always saying, oh, you're going to kill me.
Yeah.
Because he had already killed a Spren.
Yeah.
Like,
the fact that Pattern agreed to bond her anyway, despite that, was like,
Mhm.
Oh, Pattern.
I
my heart.
already had so much love for Pattern, and like
And Pattern
this
like
one-
tried to save Shallan at the end.
and when
It worked, yeah.
Shallan's like pushing him away because he's like the traitor, and she doesn't like. And I'm just like, but he just.
I talked to Lloyd.
Yeah, it's like he talked to Hoyt, and it's like, I just need to say, it's like, you are loved, you are worthy of that love. Like, it's just,
Man, I really liked Shallan's stuff here.
It was
was
good.
good.
I know we didn't talk about it in the intro part, but it really was very
Like,
good.
it was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I talk about Testament for a little bit?
Go for it.
Yeah.
I guess Pattern was just completely lying in Words of Radiance the entire time. I guess that's what it seems like.
yeah.
Because like
Pattern lies. So now
yeah,
we know.
clearly. But like, I guess the thing is like, oh, Pattern's a bad liar. I don't know. I'm actually more confused about Shallan's past, but I'm like, yeah, okay, I guess. And at the end in chapter 115, they're just like, there were still some things that didn't make sense in her past. So we're just like, I mean, I guess we better figure it out in book 5. Because I mean, I guess if her mom is Skybreaker related, then we'll deal with Skybreaker stuff, I guess. I don't know how the hell that's going to fit
It's
in.
this book, like the Skybreakers. That's why the Skybreakers weren't important in this book, because they're going to be important next book.
Yeah. But it's, I'm like, just what is the chronology of her oaths and stuff, and which
Does she
blades did
have-
she summon in Words of Radiance?
Does she have all of her oaths with Pattern, or there are some like a couple attached to Testament? And like, is her progression with Pattern actually normal? And she just doesn't have her plate yet. And it's just like, but you never know, because she also is still like actively repressing. So it's like,
Yeah, I mean, we had a long time during Words of Radiance where Shallan thought she had a dead Shardblade and was just pretending that it wasn't a living Shardblade for a while and counting 10 heartbeats. So
But was
Shallan's
it
Shallan's ability to repress her oaths and her abilities is
Well, no,
Who
and
knows?
she didn't think in Way of Kings it wasn't a dead Shardblade, because part of her whispers, "Oh, I could get it faster than 10 heartbeats."
right. It's gosh.
Yep.
I can't know it's not a regular Shardblade.
Yeah, but like now, like this is the first time we've seen a dead Shardblade bonded to its original Radiant.
Yeah,
This is
okay, I guess
unlike
that's,
any
yeah.
other Shardblade.
Yeah, that's the weird thing.
That's true.
Man, this
So it's like,
Yeah, that's the reaction to Shallan's back history now. And it's like, hey, remember all those wobs we got about like trying to pin down like what oath Shallan is at and like what's going on in her past? Just like
anything with
forget
Pattern
it.
in the past.
Forget
Yeah,
it.
just forget it. Forget it. Friend
Yeah, it's gone.
just had to lie. It was just like, I had to lie.
So is Shallan still bonded to Testament's dead blade?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
She
I
She
think
just,
so.
has
two
both
blades.
blades and has never. It just doesn't summon Testament.
No.
Oh my
I think
gosh.
maybe in Words of Radiance she did summon Testament.
Joff and I have a long argument
goodness.
about whether or not the blades that we see Shallan summon in various scenes are or are not a living
Boy.
blade.
What? That is
So-
going to be a podcast. We have
That's
some
gonna be a
things to
lot.
talk about. Like I've read Tin's scene where Shallan murders Tin like several times. It's unclear. Thanks.
It's clear in the chasms.
Yeah, well, it is clear in the cosmos. You're right. But
Whew.
I feel like I see like this important arc for this front half about the Radiance. And we got a lot more about the Recreants in this book. And like the Spren chose to do this, but they didn't know that they would turn into Deadeyes. Because like that changed when
That's
Bottomisham
huge.
was imprisoned and hurt the sibling. All crazy. We're gonna have a podcast on it. But like I feel like book 5, that's gonna finally be, we are going to know everything about the Recreants, right? And I think Maya's gonna be revived. Like I think that's where this is going. And maybe in the time jump we will revive other blades. Like I think that's plausible.
Maya might be revived in some ways. I think she might become something different. I don't think Adolin is going to become like a edge dancer.
I think it will be weird, but yeah, I think she'll be revived in some form and not like be a Deadeye. But like there are more Recreant secrets. We are damn well getting them in book 5, and that is gonna bring a close. And I guess that makes sense where Brandon was like, yeah, the front half is more about the Radiance, back half is more about Heralds. And I'm like, that makes sense. That makes sense. We don't know the full story of the Recreants. There are still a lot of mysteries there. But I do want to know what Shallan will be very interesting in book 5. What is her personality going to exactly be like? How's her relationship with Adolin going to be like?
Confidence.
I think so. I think so.
That was my wish for like everyone in this book. Like it was like Navani. It was like, just be confident, Navani. Like
Venli, just like do stuff.
Venli,
but
like you can be redeemed, and
Okay, I don't know. Like we'll obviously get a lot of Shallan stuff, book 5, and it will be interesting to see her character. I think we better figure out the chronology of her past, the relationship with Testament. We need some answers, Brandon, and you haven't gotten away with it. We will get answers.
You haven't gotten away with it.
The fact that we've already had her flashback book and we still don't know.
I know. That's the thing. That's the thing that gets me, right? Like, when are we going to know? But like, Brandon hung a lampshade on it in the last Shallan chapter. Was like, well, there are still some weird things. It's like, okay, Brandon, fine.
Yeah. I am like holding out hope for Shallan and Jasnah book 5 plot hunting the Ghostbloods. Like that
sounds awesome.
It brings Shallan back with Jasnah. Like there's so many different ways that make sense to me,
like,
at least.
Fighting Mraze, fighting the Ghostbloods, finding Ba'ada Mishram. Maybe Jasnah knows things about Ba'ada Mishram. That'd be awesome. I mean, Hoyd probably knows some things.
Hoyd told her so much stuff.
Yeah, and
I think Lift also might be interested in hunting Mraze since that happened as well.
And also, like, Kalak just told Shallan, like, hey, let me give you lore. What's up? And so
I'm going to write you a book, and it's going to be about stuff. The thing about how Shallan's thing ended, I was surprised at how emotional I was at when Vale left, because I didn't think I liked her. Up until that point, I was like, you know, in Oathbringer, I was like, this is bad. She needs to go. You know, and then in Rhythm of War, it was like, you know, when she was talking about how she's there to protect Shallan and she can't do that anymore, and it's like it's just time for Shallan to stand on her own. And I was just like, oh no. It was just like it was a surprisingly emotional moment of like, I'm your Vale. Like I was protecting you. And you know, it was like the fact of like, it was really frustrating when Shallan couldn't handle it for me. Like it was just like, just face your stuff, and then you can heal from there. Like, you know, you just have to face it. But it was like Vale's insistence that like Shallan did the right thing for herself, like that repressing it like was an act of protection. And it was just like it really changed the way I thought about like what was happening with the dissociation. In hindsight, I was like, this is less frustrating because it's sort of like, you know what, I think she did need this. And it was just really powerful for me.
I always struggle to go right after Shannon because she has such good character takes that I'm like, oh man, this is not going to be as complex a thought. My perspective on the personas really changed this book. Like in Oathbringer, I definitely viewed them as a problem for Shallan to solve, and it was so interesting to see that dynamic flip and have them be the ones that were pulling her towards where she eventually ended up needing to go. And same thing. I just didn't expect how attached I would get to them, or. Yeah, I think part of it was the smooth transition between the personas. Like you spent a lot of time with, especially Radiant too, which I felt like we saw the least of in the last book.
Yeah,
she really gets a character this book.
Yeah. And I had the same experience. I really didn't like the Vale and Radiant before, and it's that typical Brandon thing where he reverses and then takes it away. So you're like, I hated Vale, and then you made me like Vale, and then you took Vale away. So now I'm mourning.
It is Elhokar.
It's another Elhokar. Oh, man.
He does it every time, and it's like, who's next? Moash. He's going to make me fall in love with Moash.
I don't know about that. I think Moash is pretty well irredeemable at this stage.
He crossed a pretty big line this book, I think. Yeah.
On the topic of Shallan, Alyx, I think we need to talk about Ghostblood things. But before we do, with this Mistborn spoilers, this part, I'll put a chapter thing, spoilers. It's Mistborn spoilers for the next bit. So
and not like little Mistborn spoilers.
Yeah, like seriously.
Multiple era Mistborn spoilers.
Yeah.
Multiple era.
Yep.
All the Mistborn books.
So much.
Alyx, how about Ghostblood stuff? You just Kelsier's there. What's up?
So, for those who are unaware of
Yep.
my feelings on things,
Uh-huh.
I really like the Ghostbloods, and I really hate Kelsier. And so the fact that Kelsier is apparently the leader of the Ghostbloods.
Lord of Scars, Hoyd beat him up previously, and Kelsier would totally create a world-hopping organization to do this. Yep,
I'm so
this,
mad.
This makes sense.
Even
And
the-
cognitive shadowy, yeah, it's there.
There's also
the mercantile goal of the Ghostbloods is so in line with like a Kelsier,
it really
like the
is.
idea of like the investiture economy. It's a very Kelsier plot.
It makes me more mad at Kelsier that he's now ruining my favorite secret society on Roshar.
Well, not
Get
just
out of
Roshar,
here.
everywhere. The
That's true.
Cosmere,
They're apparently
one of
all
the most
over.
powerful organizations in the Cosmere.
So I'm so ticked. Yeah, also Brandon's like troll wob of like, which of the secret societies would Kelsier join on Roshar? And then and Brandon's like, oh well, he would join the Ghostbloods hypothetically and be
what
their leader within a year. Or
It's like,
whatever.
and you know what? Kelsier is a ghost, so it makes sense. Ghostblood.
It's
Hemalurgy
Anyway,
joke. There's a hemalurgy joke there.
We'll see if Kelsier ever brings me back around, but I'm so annoyed with all of the life choices that he makes, and maybe it's a good thing that Shallan and the Ghostbloods plot has kind of like concluded this era so that I can just enjoy it in a vacuum before Kelsier came in and ruined everything and made me hate them. So maybe I won't like the Ghostbloods anymore. That'd be sad, but
There's so much to unpack there.
Kelsier,
We're going to do a podcast on it. Alex will be there.
I will be there. Have
you-
lots of thoughts.
You have lots of thoughts.
I just had a thought. So I was just thinking like, oh, is Shallan, like, is Thaidakar going to be like an opposition to Shallan? And it's like Kelsier actually going to appear in some form? But then I was like thinking, or like we have Sized's letter as well. And he mentions he's creating a champion of some sort who can protect and kill.
Yep.
And I'm like, what if he's setting up Wax to take out Kelsier, have a struggle between Wax and Kelsier? And that's why the Ally of Law series happens in between the two arcs of Stormlight Archive.
So that's a chronology note. Era 2, the cowboy era, happens in between Stormlight 5 and 6.
Well, it takes place after 5,
After 5, possibly before.
possibly before
But
6.
with depending on how long the time jump is. But
Is there a place where I can donate to Wax's campaign to kill Kelsier again? Because
Like it's like this is legit totally insane Cosmere stuff of like, man,
yeah.
we're gonna need to have a real special spoiler thing on Kelsier's article. Like, whoa, there's a lot of spoilers here.
Yeah.
It's like, yikes.
just
Man.
find me on Scadrial with like a picket sign like the Lord Ruler was right. Put him back in the ground.
Oh my god. But like
Oh yeah. Oh, I was gonna say, I'm sure other people have come to this realization by now who read this book, but now that we know who Rester is and Thaidakar are, it is pretty wild that Gavilar in his follow-up is good. Did Kelsier send you? Oh, is it Kalak? Like,
oh, also I have a sphere of anti-void light. You know, no big deal.
Yeah.
It's just like, what? Book 5 prologue is gonna be ridiculous. And talk to Teravangian too.
Man.
All those things occurred. But I don't know, like I feel like we won't see Kelsier in book 5 because like we haven't had like any Eotil since Words of Radiance because we really haven't had that much Ghostbloody stuff in the last 2 books, honestly.
Yeah.
And like this is I think it's got to be like Shallan is going to come clean to Adolin about Ghostblood stuff. And she's going to come clean to Jasnah.
Finally.
Yes.
Hasn't she already explained it to Adolin in the
No.
final?
oh, and maybe
Adolin.
In the
Yes.
final, Adolin
Yeah.
in the final scene.
Oh, in the final scene. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's happened by the end of Rhythm of War.
Yeah. But she needs to come, and I'm glad also this book finally explained to me why Shallan had not told Jasnah yet, because that's been driving me crazy. but I hope now it happens.
I think it will. And it's like, I'm fighting against the Ghostbloods. What's up?
I could plausibly see like Kelsier being alluded to being arriving towards the end of book 5 as a like, yes, this plot arc is wrapping up. There's still more Stormlight coming. Like, not everything is wrapped up. Just one of those like dangling threads that will connect into the back 5.
That is so insane.
Another thing. So, secret history spoilers.
Yep.
Which are Mistborn spoilers.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Kaladin has seen entities from another world come to a shard world where they know a shard is about to die and set up shop and wait to try. Like, he's seen someone else do that. Now we have Roshar, where shards are in conflict.
So you think we might see Weiry stuff?
Well, or is Kelsier through the Ghostbloods going to try to pull something similar to what the Weiry?
Oh.
Did Kelsier like gank the Weiry's business plan, and that's where he got the idea? Maybe.
Well,
Yeah.
That's
Did
interesting.
he run his competitors out of business?
Yeah.
Like, the interesting thing with that is we're supposed to get, between 5 and 6, we're supposed to get both the Elantris sequels and Era 3, right? So maybe there's Elantris stuff that's important for book 6, which is weird and crazy. We're definitely in a new era of cosmere linkage, for sure.
And speaking of the Weiry, they did get a mention in Lasting Integrity.
Did they?
Oh,
Yeah,
they did.
The device that the Honors Friend store their Stormlight in was purchased from the Weiry.
Oh, yeah. I just remember the travelers from Nalthus, which, if you look on the map, Expanse of Vibrance, just south of Lasting Integrity. Oh, oh boy. That's
also on the World Hopper note. Maybe this is too much of a digression, but the Hell Basher and being like, oh, I used to think I was a type 1 biochromatic entity, but now I'm a type 2. And like, there's a lot.
Tell us the whole categorization, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, while we're talking about random world hoppers, whoever Axendwith is, whoever she works for, whoever that Gary Stewart guy who was just
the other Terraceman,
two Terraceman. His name is Gary or Gara, if you're reading it probably how it's supposed to be pronounced.
I don't think it's supposed to be pronounced Gary.
You can definitely say it like Gary. So.
Gary the world hopper.
16.
Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah, whatever's up with 16.
What does that have to do with anything?
What? One, we got a Sion. That's always awesome.
Shallan has a Sion.
More importantly, there's a dragon on Roshar, which at one point I thought was 16. But guys, it's cultivation. Cultivation's a dragon.
on the Sion point, it's also an unbonded Sion.
Yeah.
Right? Like they mentioned that being like different.
I guess.
I don't know.
But like the passing of the Sions is weird. You know, it's not like a bond.
Was
like
that it's like now that like she has it, like it's not. It's hers. It's just like one that's not claimed by anybody.
Yeah.
Now she'll have 3 spread bonds, two cryptics, and a Sion. Shallan's collecting them all. Well, I know, but like Rosharans would probably call them spread. But like,
what if it
would?
I know.
The biggest gag is all of a sudden like if the Sion's name and it's like Ian or Ashy or something, and like that would be.
It's Ale, but I'm holding out for an Ao and Ian.
Someday.
Well, isn't Ayin like that's Raiden's
with an
Sion,
E,
isn't it?
But it's Ian. Not
Ian wants an IAN for his name.
Yeah. Okay. Oh.
Let's stop Cosmere spoilers and talk about Adolin. Adolin.
I loved him in this book.
I really liked him in this book.
One slightly negative note. I wish he had a scene at the end. Like I thought a little more internal, like just a wrap up of like what of how what he's thinking now that the trial's done and now that Maya's awake. It's sort of like that kind of feels like a glaring like little missing what's he thinking about all of this now? Is he like thinking maybe I can be an edge dancer now, or is he thinking like, it's like I would have loved that, but other than that, this was an incredible Adolin arc of just what an internal life he has, and
on the subject of like, does he think he's going to become an edge dancer? Like, I don't think he cares about being he just cares about Maya.
Yeah, I agree.
Which I think is the important thing.
Yeah.
Which, if anything, like makes him even more of an edge dancer, in my opinion. But like, I also particularly liked that he is not okay with his father. Like he acknowledges that like, I love my father. I just don't like him right now. Like I can't. Like he can't accept that. Like, which is very different from like Renarin's perspective on that. And I like that they have different perspectives on that.
Yeah, that they're both like really having to deal with that and coping with it. It was really good.
Yeah,
and neither of them had like the stereotypical like, I'm not talking to you anymore, like I hate you forever reaction. Like it's just so nuanced in both cases. And Adolin's goodbye scene with Dalinar before he goes into Shadesmore, I was screaming at Dalinar because I was like, you
feel the frustration.
Idiot. Yeah, like Brandon painted Adolin's like frustration and I understood it. I was like, yes, like Dalinar means so well, but he is just saying all of the wrong
I totally agree about the Dalinar stuff. Like that's what maybe the character thing I'm most excited for in book 5 is Adolin and Dalinar are gonna have to talk, like they're gonna have to work through this on some level. And the other Adolin scene that I think probably like gets a little less attention, but I think is really good is when he talks to Nodum. I just love that. Like he totally understands where Nodum's coming from, and he knows that this is huge for him, and that he could just betray him right here. And he's like, "No, do what you want. Like, I know you'll do the right thing." And that was just like perfect.
Hitting the like guilt trip on the witness stand for Nodum was like, get him. You were in the right. Get him.
All of his interactions with Nodum were great, but like going back to like the beginning of his arc, where like in part 1 we see like he's dressing much more fancy now. Like he has like fancy boots, and he has the whole scene about like picking what clothes he's going to take and what he's going to wear that day, and he picks the thing that like adheres to the like what was just a fancy uniform. But in the past, like Dalinar was like, no, like wear like the standard uniform. And so like he wears it again, and Dalinar's like, oh, like this is so great. Like, like why can't you wear more stuff like this? And Adolin just being like, yeah, well, the last time I tried you, like it was a disgrace.
Yeah,
and it's just like that little subtle like rebellion, and it's like, yo, this wasn't that bad back then. Like you haven't. You've been like a sucky father for a long time.
This is this is the most individual I think Adolin has ever been, like in terms of like his arc not depending on like context from what's going on in Dalinar's. I like especially that was obviously like strongest in Way of Kings and then Words of Radiance. But it was like you kind of need Dalinar's scenes and what's going on with him in order to kind of like follow what's going on with Adolin, because Adolin is like especially early on such a response to what's going on with Dalinar. But this really felt like like Adolin was like really standing on his own as a character in this one, like so strongly. I loved it.
And that's a really cool development, because I think initially Adolin's purpose was just to give an external view of Dalinar. Yeah. When it's like not sure if he's crazy or not, right? And to see him just blossom and grow into so much more than that is super cool.
I really like how Adolin still gives you a different perspective on Dalinar, because everyone likes Dalinar, everyone knows how great Dalinar is, but you don't often see the flaws that Dalinar still has, where he's too demanding, he's too rigid.
What's so cool about that too is Adolin's said to be the one who like puts Dalinar on a pedestal, and his dad is like, he grew up being like, oh, my dad's the hero, blah blah blah. But he's the one who's being Dalinar's critic now. Like the nuance to that is super fun.
And it's so different from Way of Kings when it was like when Adolin's criticisms of his father weren't reasonable. It was like Adolin needed to grow so much, and now you're sitting here like Adolin's feelings are completely understandable. And like there's a when he describes Dalinar as being like I can't remember what the Roshar equivalent was. It was just like a bull, like the equivalent of like, he's going to get his way. And it's sort of like, it feels great when you're in Dalinar's perspective, like when you're reading from his point of view, but like Dalinar getting his way doesn't feel super great when you're reading from other people's perspectives. Which is like, you kind of need to see this like that's an aspect of like Dalinar getting his way and him succeeding that you got to see from the outside. Sometimes it's like, it doesn't always, it's not a net good for everybody.
Like Wit calling him a tyrant. Like,
yeah.
He is. Yeah. I do also want to point out, like, I loved the scene of him and Maya fighting back to back doing the kata.
That whole stuff.
So great.
Adolin was so brutal in that scene. Like, he was in serious danger there. Like, one of my favorite scenes of just Adolin just being such a badass. He doesn't have his plate, he doesn't have his blade, and it's still just like, no, I am just going to wreck you.
As a point of fact, he did have his blade.
He did have his blade.
She just wasn't in blade form.
She just wasn't.
That's true.
That's true. That is
his blade was fighting with him.
That's right.
I know this was one that was in the preview chapter, so people have already seen it, but the scene where he takes Kaladin out because he knows that Kaladin shouldn't be alone is just, it's so wonderful.
That's what Kaladin needs.
It was
Syl went to grab him was like the moment. It was sort of like things have changed so much over this past year that Syl knows Adolin is a safe person to go to and like one of the best options for Kaladin.
I was going to say the little moment where he like asks for advice about Shallan and then Kaladin gives him advice and he's like, oh, Adolin just manipulated me into saying I need to take care of myself. Dang it. And it's like, they're so wonderful. I love them.
Well, and the pairing of that scene, like with Adolin's goodbye, like, because he kind of had that scene leading up to like saying goodbye to everyone before he went to Shadesmar. And so his goodbye to Kaladin also was such a nice, like, little callback to the scene and how Adolin's the one who he's like, well, like, you don't have to give up. Like, things might be different and things might change, but like, maybe you could work your way back, or maybe it could be something different, or, I really like dueling, or we can try different things. Like he seems to really see Kaladin and like it's just
Adolin is real.
It's good relationship.
Yep. Adolin is real.
I know. Thinking back to Words of Radiance, really just couldn't stand each other.
Yeah, and then they grew. It's good.
Well, and Kaladin also reflects at one point back on being like, oh, one of the darkest times aside from the honor chasm was when I was locked up. After jumping into the ring.
Yeah.
And then putting that in context and being like, oh, and then Adolin was putting himself in the cell with you. Like, it's just...
Speaking of Adolin relationships, let's talk about Adolin and Shallan. What I really liked them together in this book.
Yes.
Like a lot of good character development.
It was really cute.
It was really cute. It's so like my relationship that I'm like, oh, we would really make those jokes like all the time. Like with the stupid jokes, the flirty jokes. Like, yep, this is. Yep.
I also really liked that it was a married couple who were progressing in their relationship, but it wasn't like just all like, oh yeah, now we're all great. And that's something I didn't get in the end of Mistborn, the last book, after Vin and Elend got married, because they didn't have time for it because they were busy being a super battle couple saving the world. But getting that kind of progression after matrimony, which in the romance genre is like the ending, is really cool. And I'm excited to see where that goes with more kind of ups and downs, but
especially after this book with Shallan.
Yeah, but ups and downs that weren't like, oh, we're being awful or we're fighting or we're almost breaking up. Like downs, like no, like we're just
How do I
still
get
learning
Shallan
how to
out?
be a couple. Yeah.
How do I get Shallan out? And that's what Adolin's deeply concerned with, is like about her health and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
I loved how respectful he was of her recovery process. And, you know, he walked that very delicate line of, you know, if he's too hands off, she might just spiral when she needs help, but also not forcing her to do things before she's ready. And that's such a difficult line to walk with someone that you love. And I think that is really one of Adolin's strengths, is that he's so emotionally aware of the people around him. And it was really, really wonderful to watch, especially knowing like how much pain and difficulty Shallan was going through. And I really think Adolin being with her every step of the way helped with that. You know, he didn't ever have the words that fixed everything, but he was always there to support her and try to be what she needed in whatever moment. And it was, they really shone together.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think him being there also, like when I was talking before about this not having like the low lows of Oathbringer for me in some ways, I think for Shallan, Adolin was part of that. It was like, it always felt like she had a safety net. Like even when she was getting like really bad in the Shadesmar arc, I was like, oh, but Adolin's there. And they're like, he's watching on things and he'll like...
Yeah, the moment that I knew it was going to be okay was when Vale went to Adolin and explained.
Yeah.
That was an incredible moment of like, what a change from like what happened in Oathbringer when like Vale was like, when Vale's existence used to be like Shallan shunting off her fear of like of the relationship with Adolin, and now it's like Vale was straight up just, I was wrong. Shallan is not ready to tell you this, but you actually do need to know this. Here's what's going on with her. Please, like, you're doing everything right. Please don't push her away. You know, like, and just like laying out in plain terms, she's scared of losing this love, you know? That was like, and that's the moment I was like, okay, it's like the conversation has been had. Adolin now knows this is now. From that moment, I was like, they're gonna work this out. These kids, these two crazy kids.
It's really nice seeing that progress. I'm really excited. Hopefully they both survive book 5, because I really want to see. I would really like to see. I mean, let's be honest. I definitely think multiple characters are going to die next book. Main characters. Yeah. I've always thought this even before. But think Adolin being commanding, in charge, not living like his dad, but being the leader that he wants to be. That'll be awesome to see. And maybe worldhopper Shallan being awesome badass. They will be an awesome power couple in back half, and that sounds awesome. And then we'll get to see them like kind of like we see Dalinar and Navani now. Oh man, that sounds so good.
Yeah, I hope so. I almost literally was thinking about something happened to Adolin, and I almost teared up because I was like, I don't know what they would do without her. Like,
right.
Yeah, now we need to do like another Keeping Up with the Colons.
We kind of do. There's a lot.
Because like the family dynamics, I'm just like thinking about all the like.
We got a lot to talk about, guys. Speaking of, we should probably talk about the third set of characters, Dalinar, Jasnah, and Renarin. They did not get much to do in this book.
No.
But what they did was pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. I can understand people who didn't expect Dalinar to take a step back. I mean, Brandon hasn't been, like, he's obviously said this, but a lot of people, you know, don't keep up with what Brandon says, and I think that's fair if they didn't like as much what Dalinar did. But, oh man, like, Dalinar did some really sweet stuff, but yeah, he wasn't there a lot.
Yeah, and it's like, to be fair to these three characters, they did a lot last book.
Yeah.
Like,
Dalinar
had the whole, like, you cannot have my pain moment. Jasnah almost killed Renarin. Renarin almost got killed by Jasnah. They deserve a book off. Like, just to like chill a little.
And the way that the setup is, like, Oathbringer was very Dalinar heavy, and book 5 has to be Dalinar heavy.
Brandon said this.
Yeah.
Book 5 was originally going to be Dalinar's book, so.
Yeah, so I think it just makes sense that there's going to be a lull because he needs to get some of this other stuff teed up.
It's like Words of Radiance, Dalinar. He was less.
Yeah, kind of the same thing. I think we see these like big moments for Dalinar, and then we kind of Brandon almost like lets him have the win for a little while. Like, we don't put Dalinar through a bunch more stuff after he's just had to deal with a lot, and then Oathbringer comes and we've got another thing to deal with, and then he gets to just sort of
let Dalinar have the win.
Let Dalinar have the win. You know,
it's similar to like Kaladin kind of took a step back in Oathbringer. Like, he didn't get to swear an oath and save the day. Like, this is Dalinar's version of that.
It's like, let the characters trade off. Like, they can't, like, no one person is going to be in the spotlight. And honestly, I really loved Jasnah's interlude, like in it's not an interlude chapter, but it's like the classic version meaning of interlude. And like, she has like that little bit on the battlefield where she has to, like,
super good scene.
That was an amazing scene where it's sort of like, she's like, I've never done this before. This is something I feel like I have to do. And Dalinar's like, that's very Alethi of you. It's like, yeah, you're a woman, but I mean, you are also an Alethi monarch. And I understand, yes, this is actually something Alethi monarchs do. You know, it's like,
I respect this.
I respect that, niece of mine.
I got this sense from some of Dalinar's flashbacks, or one in particular in Oathbringer, that Dalinar and Jasnah were kind of kindred spirits in some ways, or they had like a connection that Jasnah doesn't have with her parents. Like, her and Dalinar have this. And so seeing them together, and also the like immovable object and unstoppable force, when they
really
clash,
what they are.
Yeah.
It's like,
but they're teaming up, and so it's good stuff.
And it's like Dalinar, like we talked about, Adolin kind of showing the downside of being bulldozed over. Well, Jasnah is like bulldozing over Dalinar sometimes and giving him a taste of his own medicine.
Like,
so I
Ruth
really
R
like
scene.
their relationship.
Oh, the Ruth R scene.
Just talking about Jasnah and her relationship with her parents, I really liked the short Jasnah Navani scene that they had.
Yes.
It was short but impactful, and it was really nice to see kind of like that little relationship get at least some time, since I sometimes kind of forget that Jasnah is Navani's daughter.
Yeah, it's kind of true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, also going back to the Jasnah Dalinar relationship, is that Dalinar asks Jasnah to write the undertext to Oathbringer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And like, that is such a like pivotal moment, because like, not only is that like the fact that the undertext exists has been revealed to the men of Roshar, which is a huge thing. And Jasnah has a line of, I don't know if that tradition should continue. And Dalinar being like, no, like, it has value. Like, show like the differences in opinion. And the fact that he chose her, because like, he genuinely respects her opinion and knows that like, she will do the work justice even if she doesn't agree.
And I love that little like you know, she's like, she checks with him, he's like, are you sure? Like, I'm gonna disagree with you probably. And he's like, yeah, of course.
That's why I'm choosing you.
And it was like, and like Jasnah was affected by that. She was like, oh, you know, like that was like, that meant something to her. And I was like, oh yes.
But like, that sets an entirely new precedent in the scholarly community, because it's like, before it was like people talking behind the back of the author, and now it's like, it's all in the open. Like that's going to change things.
It's like a peer relationship. It's sort of like almost like shared authorship. It's sort of like
She's writing a second book.
I contributed to this paper.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Another unless someone has something else to say on that, but another Dalinar point that I was really happy to see included, and this plays to Navani as well, is we got a little bit of Little Gav.
Yeah.
Little Gav.
Oathbringer, I was very concerned about him because he just kind of gets kicked and then vanishes till the epilogue, and I'm
Still
like,
a little
what is
He's
concerned.
not
that?
okay. Yeah, but
Like, what happened to this
Even the
3-year-old?
stuff about like Navani like being nervous about him going to war, but them being like, oh, him being left behind in the tower probably brings back some memories.
Probably would
And
have been a
also-
little more traumatizing for him to live through that too.
Good
Yeah.
that he wasn't left behind at
Yeah,
the tower.
yeah.
because,
Yeah.
yikes.
But it also kind of like, it was making me feel a little like, because like this is a second relationship for both Dalinar and Navani, and it's
Yeah.
a little like, oh, like we're playing house, not playing house, but like, you know, like this is our little family, and this we're gonna like do it right with this kid. And this relationship, it kind of has some the whole podcast on colon family dynamics.
Yeah, we totally
Like,
can.
it's
I
so
Probably do.
complicated.
Yep.
I am really excited to see how Dalinar and Navani will interact, because like that's just so cool. Because apparently
Super bondsmith couple.
apparently that the sibling bondsmith never like had a relationship with the Stormfather bondsmith. So like that's just a new thing apparently as well.
Yeah.
Were any of the bondsmiths ever dating before?
No,
it does
yeah,
get
it
mentioned
does.
that the bondsmith of
Does it?
the Stormfather and Nightwatcher were
Yeah.
often in a relationship,
but not the
but
sibling
never
one.
with the sibling.
Often? Ooh.
Well, it's just that it's
Really
happened.
sometimes.
like that it had
Yeah.
happened a few
Maybe
times.
not often, but
I
What I-
didn't. I missed that. That's cool.
What I love about Navani becoming a bondsmith, though, is I remember, like in the book, she also part of her struggle is like, am I just repeating what I did with Gavilar with Dalinar? Like he's another like strong, unyielding, uncompromising man who like has a vision and is going for this, and I'm like keeping the kingdom running. And yes, I feel differently about Dalinar. My feelings feel more real, but am I just doing the same thing? And her becoming the bondsmith for the sibling, I think firmly says, no, you're not just doing the same thing.
It's like you're not just the one who has to be in control, making sure the party happens while my husband is off
Yeah.
doing his like his terrible business and is not interacting. Where it's sort of like with Dalinar, it's sort of like, no, he cares about making sure the business gets done, and
Yeah.
he is a domineering person, but he's not. He
And
doesn't try to run roughshod over people, and it's sort of like, and he never does that with Navani.
Yeah. And even though it also reframes it, because like I think in a couple, it's okay if you have like different responsibilities.
yeah.
Because like Dalinar doesn't have a head, like she mentions, like he doesn't think, oh, I should go have dinner with Queen Fen because she might feel neglected. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't clue into that. And so Navani does that for him. But it's just more of a like relationship of equals and us like sharing our strengths than like, oh, like it's the Gavilar show and I'm like the stage manager.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what she becoming a bondsmith was. Like they became equals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Measurably. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, because it's like she was like queen of Urithiru because Dalinar was king of Urithiru. Now it's like it's really like she is queen of Urithiru.
She is very much queen of your theory.
Yeah.
The leader of this tower.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Yep.
I want to
how-
quickly mention, because we did talk about 3 characters here. Renarin didn't get a lot of like screen time in this book, but I feel like he had a lot of importance.
Yeah.
I mean, he was. I love that the cast is kind of realizing how instrumental his powers are in disrupting future sight and how big of a tool that is. And we really saw Taravangian clocking that. But also we are now getting, Renarin saying like, this is an important thing and we need to have more of this. And now we're going to have Rlain coming on as
we gotta talk
another
about Rlain.
enlightened truth watcher.
Which is cool.
I know we have multiple people in this chat who are on the same page in terms of like Rlain and Renarin would be such a
should
great
date.
Relator
couple.
in for
They
life.
should
They should
absolutely date. please, Brandon, I know you don't watch these, but you need to watch this clip where I tell you they would be so cute together.
Are you saying Brandon doesn't want to watch over 2 hour long podcasts about his own books?
Yeah. I'm hoping we get more of Renarin in the future, but I loved the little scenes that we did get. So.
Yeah.
And like, I just love the visuals of his powers, like
Yeah,
the
it's
stained
really
glass,
cool.
like future visions. 'Cause stained glass is just an aesthetic.
It's always cool.
I love.
So he can now like pull them up like with effort and
That was so cool.
make
Summoning
it
the
happen.
thing.
Like he's learning more about his powers. Like so wonderful.
Yeah. No, and like just the fact that he was like, because like Rlain has that scene at the beginning with Kaladin like pressuring an honor spren to consider forming a bond with Rlain, and Rlain rejects that. But then like I don't know, like Renarin like does it in a different way where he's just like, oh, I know someone who's worthy, and like
it was like, hey, take a look at this person. I think you'll like them, rather than as like, go bond that person.
That happened twice. This was like a 1, 2, 3. This was the honor spren, and then it was the sibling, and then it was like someone accident. Like it's sort of like, and in both times, like the first two, it's sort of like the honor spren don't like singers, and I feel forced into this. Sure, I'll take a look at this Rlain guy, and it's sort of like, and in the sibling, it was like the sibling is like, I don't want a human, and it's like, what about a singer? Just any random singer. We have one of those. And then it's like, oh,
like cautiously interested. Like I could try.
I could try with that person. Like it's fine because like they're not human. Yeah, like that's like the worst of the best of the worst options. And then at the end, it's sort of like, here's someone who's excited about Rlain and is like, what you are, I love it. Like, this is exactly the position in the story and the place. Like, you are the bridge between people. You don't belong, like in like the same way that I don't belong. That means we belong together. And it was just like enthusiastic. I want this with you.
And just to go off on that point, I think, and I'm just realizing this now, the difference too is like, so when Kaladin was doing it, it was just, oh, Rlain is part of Bridge 4. So he should be a Windrunner. And with the sibling, it was, oh, he's like the non-human who's on our side. So he should do it. Whereas I feel Renarin was thinking about Rlain as an individual. And who Rlain actually is.
And like going off of that, it's like, Rlain is still Bridge 4 because Renarin is still Bridge 4.
Yeah.
Like corrupted Truth Watchers are still Bridge 4.
They're so
like I just want to read like a couple lines from like when Toomey first shows up. It's like it's like, keep fighting, a voice said in his head. Salvation will be, Rlain, listener, bridger of minds. I have been sent to you by my mother at the request of Renarin, son of thorns. I have watched you and seen your worthiness. Speak the words and do not despair.
That's pretty good.
Like,
that's pretty good.
The fact that they both have titles, it's
that's
so
cool.
good.
Bridger of minds. Oh,
and it's like going back to like the excerpts from the diagram. There has to be an answer. What is the answer? Stop. The Proshendi, one of them. Yes, they are the missing piece. Push for the Alethi to destroy them outright before this one obtains their power. It will form a bridge.
Oh, really interesting.
I don't think that's it, but I like the idea. But I don't think that's what that refers to.
There are multiple Parshendi who have sort of done that a little bit. There's Venli and the Reachers. And now the Reachers are like, we're in, but only for the listeners. Interesting. I like it. I'll put my tally behind that one.
I think that this refers to Ash and I getting a Void Sprint and creating the Everstorm. I think that that's what the bridge they're talking about is and why they want to be destroyed. I like the idea, Ian, and I like the connection with the bridge, but I don't think that's what this is.
It is very interesting.
And I am super curious. I have definitely clocked the fact that we talked about there were 3 Truth Watchers and we've only identified 2 of them, and I want to know who the third Truth Watcher is.
Right.
Brandon. But I'm also really curious about the differences between like even the names, like Gliss and Toomey are such different names than our other misprint that we see, which is Dreaming Though Awake.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
And
super different.
It feels like they talk really differently too. Like they almost have some of the like Inkspren inflections about this will be, salvation will be, and even Renarin does it once. Like I wonder if he's like picking up on Gliss's inflections a little bit, mimicking the way that he speaks. So I'm just curious what's going on there, because they are supposed to be Mistspren since they're Truth Watchers, but they're so different from Dreaming Though Awake.
Yes, Ian.
Realized one of the things that really frustrated me: Miss Friend being Radiant's friend.
Because Brandon told you specifically, right?
Well, like someone else asked, like in a previous like exchange, and the one time I met him, like I brought it up, and it was like about how it frustrated me, and he was like, "Yeah," and then like didn't like.
Wobbs are not ironclad. Canon always beats Wobbs. That's what is that's what we have.
Rhythm of War.
Like,
Rhythm
don't get
of
me
War
wrong. Like, I'm glad he made this because it retroactively makes my theory correct that they were the Truth Watchers' friend. But
like, and all the retrospective pattern Wobbs where Brandon was just straight up lying. But you know, it was a pattern. It was a pattern.
Yeah.
So,
but I'm so curious what Gliss and Toomey would look like in the cognitive realm too.
I don't know. What about if we bring them to the physical? Again, better.
Stop. No, bad. Cancel.
Every time people talk about, what about when a Spren comes like fully into the physical world, and they mean like the blades and stuff, but like it's
takes
like
on a new meaning now.
At the end of Rhythm of War, now it's like no.
Although not want.
I think like we distinguish between them coming to the physical with a bond versus coming to the physical
and
without
coming to the
bond.
physical. Yeah.
And disintegrating on entry.
That was so creepy. Well, that'll be a whole podcast in and of itself, because what the hell? But I kind of wanted to talk about Venli and the listeners, because I really liked how that ended up. That Rlain going on his different path. I really liked that. I really liked. I loved the moment when Venli revealed to Leshwi that she has a bond. That was in one of my awesome, crazy moments in Rhythm of War, where Venli just is like, "What have you done?" And then scene break. What a troll, Brandon. And then just bows, right?
Yeah.
And Leshwi's like, they've come back, and so good. I love it. And it's like, do you know this honor sprint? It's like, yeah, the honor sprint are all dead. Rip.
Like, Leshwi is like so like overwhelmed with emotion, like she falls to the ground. Like,
what happened with the singers and the sprint? Oh, it's crazy.
So like curious. When she first sees though, she like hums to, I think it's the Rhythm of Destruction, and I still don't know why she hummed to the Rhythm of Destruction, and then she's like overwhelmed with joy right afterwards. But
maybe because she's remembering destruction.
Maybe
like the
I don't know about the rhythm.
Like loss.
Because I think Brandon wants you to think that like, she's angry and she's gonna like kill.
Yeah, the purpose is the fake out. I just don't know what the explanation is.
Yeah, it doesn't make as much sense to me in hindsight.
Yeah, it's like Leshwi hummed immediately to destruction and grabbed Venli by the face.
It's a little weird. Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I kind of like wonder, like Leshwi doesn't have the original rhythms anymore, right?
She does attune one, like during that scene. Like it's like after like she finds out, like she attunes to
after,
one of the old rhythm.
I'm just like, it's sort of like this is like just weird and what's Doyleist? Maybe it's no, it's Watsonian. Shoot. Okay. It's like I think it's just like the simple but unsatisfying answer is just like she.
He was just in shock.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm just like I'm tired. It's not that I don't know what I'm saying. It's that I'm tired. It's like her first instinct is like she has to reach for the old rhythms, but like the Odium rhythms are like what's just like the first thing. So it's sort of like she grabs just like the Odium equivalent of shock, and and that's
makes sense.
That's just the first and only thing that makes sense to me. Just
I think that's very plausible.
I love the moment where like there's the fighting breaking out, and Leshwi's just like, "Don't worry, I know what to do." Voice, and we have a fused on the listeners are kind of like a third faction. They're not like the Radiant side, but it's a fused against Odium, and that is really awesome.
Hey, remember how Leshwi like turned against Odium to save Kaladin's life, and then the lives of like humans in the tower? Like,
yeah, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah,
I'm also thinking like when the next time she dies and goes back to Braze, what's gonna happen to her
then
as
she's
a
gone for good,
traitor
I think.
fused? Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's
I don't think
like,
she wants to die anymore.
I think she will just be destroyed by anti-void light. Like, that is what they will do.
Yeah.
Like, this is her last life, for sure.
Unless, like, she survives through the resolution of the whole Odium thing.
Yeah. So from a writer perspective, I think the Venli arc really impresses me how Brandon pulled it off, because it's so introspective. Like, Venli does very little. She does a lot of watching. She does a lot of watching, and a lot of her conflict is with herself. It's internal.
True.
Like, she does have some external conflicts with dealing with, like, Raboniel and Leshwi and, the subterfuge kind of. But for the most part, it's an internal conflict. And I think that's probably also partly why Brandon needed to lean on Navani, because I don't think Venli, where she's at right now, could have supported a whole book as the like main plot arc, just because it was so internal. But the fact that he pulled it off so well, I think, is a test, because that's hard to like write that plot arc and make it compelling and interesting.
I really, really enjoyed one of the more active things she did, though, which was experimenting with those stone shaping powers, because learning just a tiniest bit about the history of the earliest Dawn Singers and their ability to have at one point had a power to shape stone was one of the most awesome, just like single page scenes in the entire book.
What is going on with that?
We might be actually about to say the same thing, like the way her oath got rejected.
Her oath got rejected.
Yeah.
It was the same thing. Yeah, that was a
I was like, cool. I knew it, because it's sort of like, this was like a moment of like, she's like, well, I know what the oath is, I'm just going to say it. And then Cultivation's like, you didn't really challenge yourself, did you?
Cultivation is accepting
Cultivation,
not
a feminine voice, not not all. Anyway,
not the Stormfather.
It was just like looking at Venli and what she was willing to risk, which was nothing. At
that time, but
at the time she was afraid. She was like, I know what I have to do, but I'm not going to do it. But I know what the right thing is, so that's it, right? That's enough. No, you gotta put yourself on the line in order to uphold this oath that you're trying to swear. And it's like, no, your oath is not accepted.
Yeah, but like then the scene at the end where it's like the voice is like, your words, Venli, are now accepted. Is just like,
it's like, oh, they made that so satisfying.
And we could heal Venli's mom too with maybe a light spren, possibly.
No, that happens. Like,
oh yeah.
I love that Venli, because like part of her big character conflict is she's so impatient in some ways. Like, she wants to be like the best and the most powerful and everything like right now. And so I think forcing her to wait and be patient was a really
do the work and not just get the shortcut.
Do the work. She is the kid in school who's like smart and like won't show their work on the math test because they just like get the answer and they're like, no, we still need to practice and like, yeah.
I have no idea what the listeners are going to do for book 5 though. Like that's the thing that like I kind of understand Kaladin and Szeth, right? And Shallan and Jasnah, kind of get that. What Dalinar is doing other than the Battle of Champions, no idea. But what I have no idea what the listeners are going to do, but it's probably a big deal.
So listeners are probably going to do something with the fact that chasm fiends are sentient, maybe.
Oh yeah, you know that part. Right.
For that matter, Cherry talked in that whole interlude.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
I was going to talk about like the fact that the Reachers are probably going to go do their whole a bigger scale bonding with the listeners, because they're like they're like, we don't want to side with Odium. Oh, look at this, a whole group of like not Odium associated non-humans. Humans, Humans are whack. We're gonna try the listeners again. We like them better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do hope that like over time, like Reachers do start bonding humans again, and then like other friend types start bonding listeners.
The
I
spread,
don't want it to be segregated.
the
You know,
spread in
but, like,
general really care about the race differences, and we don't know why.
Mhm.
We got to get some answers about. I mean, the recreants, and I would hope we would learn what the singers did to the Spren, but that might be back half stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
mhm.
This is VoiceOver Feather letting you know that interlude we cut about Dawnshard spoilers is about to start in just a few seconds. Please skip to 2 hours and 28 minutes if you don't wish to see it. Enjoy.
And our thinking on this has evolved as we've understood more about the back jacket write-ups.
Yeah.
But initially, in Way of Kings, the back jacket says, I think something along the lines of one of these will save us and one of these may destroy us or something like that. So I've always kind of been watching the main three based on that, to be like, is one of these three going to be the big villain potentially of the back? And I've become more and more convinced that's probably not going to happen because it doesn't seem to be where Brandon is going. But the suspicion that like Shallan, I'm pretty sure Kaladin is going to stay a hero, but that Shallan or Dalinar in some form or someone could end up in a different position in the back five hasn't really left me entirely.
So Matt, you haven't read Dawnshard, have you?
I have.
Oh, I was gonna say, I know we're not doing Dawnshard spoilers, but
like they talk about this
yeah,
explicitly.
Mm.
They like
they do.
literally talk about this.
Yeah.
They talk about exactly this thing. Do we
Dalinar's-
want to like insert
no.
some Dawnshard spoilers?
Sidebar? Do we want to do a sidebar?
Well, that's why. So what I was saying is, as we've learned more about the back things, like I put less stock in the actual words of the back thing because I know who's writing them, and I know they're talking about a very specific thing. But the theme that was introduced by them hasn't left me. So that's why I wasn't thinking of it in the Dawnshard light, because I wasn't taking it literally from the
You weren't
back.
taking like Yasmin the first at
Yeah.
their word that they're
Yeah.
totally right about everything.
I mean,
Yeah.
they can't be right about everything. That's true.
Yeah.
Man, how am I going to edit this part? I don't know.
Sorry.
Honestly,
Maybe
not that much
Not-
Dawnshard Rhythm of War overlap, all things considered. So it's like, it's
Yeah.
mostly okay. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sorry, I wasn't thinking of it that way.
Yeah, I mean,
because-
the guy says exactly this.
I know, he's like,
he says,
and Dalinar's the one who's gonna destroy us.
yeah,
I was
it's
like,
like, oh, there you go.
I guess we
Yeah.
just know that now. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
There's a
But
mystery.
he was talking specifically, Dalinar's going to destroy the
Yeah.
Sleepless.
That is not the impression I got.
Oh.
Yeah, I
No.
thought that was gonna be
Wasn't
like
it us all? Wasn't it like destroy us all? Was that the language?
I
like-
think one of them may save us. One of them will destroy us.
and we thought
Oh, okay.
initially it was like Zeth, right? Going into Words of Radiance.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
kind of what I thought.
Oh, yeah.
But like
I
now
don't
with
remember.
the first, like now he's like saying, "Oh no! Oh, he's a Vunner. That's why he will destroy us."
Mm-hmm.
Technically, can we say that Taravangian being Odium was Zeth's fault in a little bit?
Yes.
We can count that. We can put
Yeah.
that against him, right?
Trauma though. He was traumatized.
I feel so bad for Seth.
Yep.
He's like he acted that way because Taravangian manipulated him so bad in the past, and like that's like a trauma response of like I'm not gonna
Yeah.
let my abuser hurt me anymore. Like that was
didn't work out
moment,
well.
and even though like plot wise it wasn't correct, it was like
It was a good
He
character
was
moment.
known.
Still.
Seth was very in his rights to not trust Taravangian.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. No,
Definitely.
he is right.
In the moment, first read, I was like, no, just this one chance, just this one time, give him a chance. But in hindsight, I'm like, no, you did the right thing, baby. Don't trust him.
Don't trust him.
And with that, Dawnshard spoilers are finished. If you are an audio listener skipping forward, you are now safe to resume the podcast. Please enjoy our final thoughts.
There's so much happening. So we've been talking a really long time. Let's there will be a whole nother podcast. And there will be many, 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 many more podcasts. I just want to point out there will be a lot of things, although it'll be more weekly. but I want to be many more podcasts. I just want to point out there will be a lot of things, although it'll be more weekly. But I want to, if there's any last subject that you want to talk about or more final-ish thoughts.
One of the things I loved about Navani's arc is her kind of working through who she is as a person and also in relation to different people in her family. And the fact that she got to look Moash in the face after he killed her son and have
Journey before destination.
Journey before destination, you bastard. It's just like,
it's really good.
And it's a line that you're leading up to it and you can feel it coming. Like and then when it actually happens, you're still just like,
yes.
Yeah.
Get wrecked, Moash.
It was just such a good arc, and Raboniel was such a good foil for her, and like their relationship was so touching, like their mutual respect. But like the culmination in that moment, I just thought was like that was in Oathbringer, Dalinar had the moment where he like opened the perpendicularity, and Journey Before Destination, you bastard, I felt was like that moment for this book.
Yeah.
Erytheru flooding with light on every floor.
Yeah.
And like trying to think like rationally about why this book works so well for me. I really like the activation of large-scale magical effects. Like, turning Erytheru on, like with the restoration of Elantris and Elantris.
That was pretty great.
That was pretty good.
Like, I also love it when there's a song associated with it. And I was like, which you think is a very niche thing, but the Pokemon movies did it at least twice that I can think
of. You might think that this is, obscure and never happens, but there are 2 Pokemon movies.
2.
Also,
maybe
like,
more. There's a lot of them.
Activate Eric's trap card, but restoring Baida Mishram might be another such moment of a big magical effect.
I am so excited. It like big final battle and Baida Mishram. What more do I need in a book? I'm ready.
Yeah. Okay. My final thoughts is like Raboniel and Leshwi really did something that I never knew that I thought we needed, but when we got it, it was like this perfect, we needed to see the Fused's point of view. We needed, it's sort of like, we didn't need this to be like, from the human's point of view for the first few books leading up to this, it's like, oh, like the final battle is coming and it's going to be so scary and it's going to be like the biggest battle we've ever seen. And then the Fused come back and then they are so tired and they've been having the same arguments they've been having for generations, like literal millennia, like these people have existed. And, like they're ready for it to be done. They're not like these cardboard cutout villains of like, we're going to wreak havoc and destruction because that's all we care about is killing humans and da-da-da-da. They just, they're like, we originally were in this because like, we really believed that the singers deserve this world. And, now it's been thousands and thousands of years and we're tired. And the sane ones, the ones who are like the most sane are just like, we need this to be over now. And like, it was such a really, I just strongly feel we needed to see this humanizing moment from the antagonist point of view. I don't even want to call them all villains because like this was so humanizing. It really made the Fused and singers into people. And it's like, we really needed this. This was good. This was such like I can understand like we needed something fresh and new. We needed to see the other side of like this big buildup of big scary bad guy.
I do have one more thing.
Okay.
And it's another Navanian sibling thing because I am Navanian sibling trash.
Yep.
But they're like after like they've bonded and like they're trying to like reactivate everything. Like there's like a very like quick going back interchange between Navani and the sibling,
Mhm.
where the sibling is like, okay, like this is all very complicated, and like Navani is instantly like,
I
oh, pressure valuable there, blah 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 there, and it's like, yes, and then like, she goes on and
It's
like
really good.
even bigger, yes, because it's like
yes.
because in the past, like the past Radiants didn't have the understanding of fabrial technology that Navani does. This is the first bondsmith the sibling has ever had that knows what to do when they are bonded. Like always before, it's like the sibling had to teach them a whole bunch of stuff before they were even like competent. Like, and she is way more than competent.
Yeah.
And she's like, yes.
Mhm.
That moment is
Super
great.
good. It would be remiss of me to, before we sign off, not mention that I loved both of the nail scenes in this book of him, going up and attacking Dalinar, and then
That scene was
also
great.
that scene was wonderful, and like Dalinar lighting up the Oath Pact in front of everybody. That was kind of cool. And then also like Nail's whole thing in the Venli flashback was
That was
also amazing.
Best flashback.
So funny. Just in case y'all forgot that I'm also trash for Nail, he was wonderful.
What about
even
your
though he's
other
only in
trash
this book a little
fave?
bit. Oh gosh, have I forgotten a trash fave?
Raise.
Oh, I mean, we kind of talked about the Ghostbloods.
Talk
I'm
about
sad that
Raise.
it's coming. I'm sad
Raise
it's coming to an end.
Race holds Thaidakar in reverence, and we can't have that anymore.
Kelsey
Yeah, and he
ruins
also,
everything
like,
once again.
Kept Lift in a cage and delivered her unto
Oh, that
Rivoniel.
doesn't matter. He's a villain. That's a villain
He's a
thing.
bad guy. He does bad things,
She's not into him because he does good things.
But yeah, like moving into book 5, I'm really excited to see more Zeth, and I feel like we've been set up for a very, very intense end of this section of Stormlight.
I need it.
Mhm. Yeah. I've got a prediction that I'm just going to throw out there for
All
my
right,
last
let's do
spot.
it.
Do it.
Final battle, Azamir. I think that's happening. That's the only major piece of territory that's left. The Mink makes a whole comment where he goes, "What would I get stuck in a siege there? That looks terrible." And like Dalinar is explicitly worrying, like, "Oh man, Odium's gonna make one more big play for land, and that's they're not gonna go for Thaylen City, like that's already in the south. They don't go. They already lost that one.
Yeah.
I think that this is it. And my other thing is, can't wait to see what's gonna happen with L. Because what?
What?
Didn't talk about that at all. Yeah, we didn't talk about L at all. Like, what?
The human lover.
Scary.
Yeah.
Very scary.
I hope he's not just going to die in a book. I would not want there to be new fused antagonists that just die each book, like a villain of the. I don't like that.
I think this is like Lezian walked so that L can run. It's sort of the villain thing that's happening here.
Hope so.
Like I said, I'm still team. I think the Odium conflict is first half. So even I don't think that's changed now that Tervangian has taken over.
This book was really great. There's so much to talk about. I know we didn't talk about everything. There's going to be an entire another podcast about this featuring Evgeny, Grace, Ben. I think Joshua's on that. Like lots of people. We're gonna talk so much. For me, I don't think it tops Oathbringer for me, because I really like the ending of that book. This ending was really good though. But holy crap, there's so much to talk about, and honestly, I think the biggest problem with the book is that this is like a big old prologue for book 5, and I am ready for book 5. Kaladin and Shallan are ready for real bad things to happen, and it is not going to go well. Like this is. I'm terrified, and what is going on? And oh, by the way, this is going off what we said before. It's like, nah, not enough Jianat. Look, there's apparently an unmade in Shinovar. We're gonna get unmade stuff. 100% in book 5.
Super exciting.
What is going on with that? But yeah, I'm into this. I really do want book 5 as ASAP though. Like this is very much the most like, I don't want to say sequel bait, but like we're clearly setting up for a very clear like sort of thing. Whereas the past Stormlight books, it's felt like we have a conclusion. I'm not really sure what's happening next. Like that's kind of how I've felt for Way of Kings, Words of Radiance, and Oathbringer. I'm like, yeah, I have no idea what the main plot's going to be.
Yeah.
I kind of know what the main plot's going to be in book 5.
Yeah, which is very natural because things have to wrap up next book.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah.
like things have to start converging.
We have to converging. Yeah, that's exactly the point. Things aren't wrapping up, but they are coming together.
Yep.
So it's sort of like at the end of a TV series, and they have 2 episodes, and one is ending part 1, and there's ending part 2, and we've just done part 1.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think I had honestly internalized how much it is really 2 5-book series until I read this book. And I was
Seriously,
like, oh,
seriously though, yeah. This
Yeah.
book makes it very clear that it's like there is going to be a dramatic conclusion in the next book. What's up? Let's settle the terms for that. By the way, it's like, yeah, okay, I guess we're doing that.
I have a really quick, funny confession that I have
Okay,
to make before.
sure.
So, when Brandon said that this book was structured a little bit more like Way of Kings, I originally thought that meant that the big finale was in part 4 and that part 5 was going to be like a little epilogue because that's the way it is in Way of Kings.
I know, that's
and so
true, but it
like
wasn't.
we had the big We Chose moment. I was like, that wasn't really a Brandon Avalanche, but that was cool. I'm good. This book
then-
can end now. And then it was not over.
That's probably why I like this book better than Way of Kings, because it's like I think it executed the characters splitting up better, in my opinion. I don't know. Yeah, I like this.
Way of
He
King
definitely
walked,
took
so
what he
rhythm-
learned writing Words of Radiance and Oathbringer.
Good run. Oh,
And
boy.
Yeah. All right.
Another thing I want more of, is, and I don't think we're going to get it, is the thing. We didn't get a lot of Kaladin, Adolin, and Shallan together. Like the 3 of them together are just so fun. And we got a lot of that in Oathbringer. Not much here. And it's not looking like we're going to
I don't know.
But what we got in Rhythm of War, it was sort of like, it almost feels like they were so intentional about like part 1 and the beginning of part 2. It's sort of like, listen, the plots in this book are going to take them far away from each other, so I have to make sure that they get like together. Like that's almost what it feels like. It's sort of like, but they are so good when they're in the same space together.
I wonder how they're gonna get together in like, because we got to see those 3 all being awesome together. Like I just there's so many. How's it gonna be 10 days? I don't know.
I know. I'm trying to
Also,
trust Brandon. But
more Renarin with the main group too. He's been away from them all.
I think we're gonna have. I think it might be bigger than Battle of Thalam Field here, book 5.
yeah, maybe.
Oh yeah.
So I know there will be riots in the comment, like the Dawnshard episode with us not doing Who's That Cosmere Character, but our raw file is 3 hours 7 minutes. So please excuse us for it will be less for you. But the longer the raw file is, the more there is to cut of like talking over each other. But we're skipping Who's That Cosmere Character. We'll try and get it in on the next Rhythm of War reactions, which will not be a week from now. It'll be I think probably sometime the weekend of Thanksgiving, probably. I think something like that. But we hope you guys enjoyed us blabbing. Obviously, we really like Brandon books a lot, and it's like, yeah, this new Cosmere, so that's great. So these are all our opinions and stuff. Put your opinions in the comments. That sounds cool. Come to 17shard.com for all your discussion that you want, or come to our Discord. We got lots of stuff. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, YouTube. You can leave us a review on iTunes. You can support us on Patreon, because man, editing all these is a lot. Right, Alex?
It really is. Yep.
Especially when they're 3 hours long. I am jealous of Brandon's Writing Excuses podcasts that are like, wow, a half-hour podcast? That's cute. That's really cute. But
sometimes patrons get fun behind the scenes stuff.
Sometimes
get a couple.
Sometimes maybe
some little fun things every so often.
But there's plenty more to talk about. There's plenty more podcasts to talk about with all this stuff. And we will be doing this for a while. I think we're set to Lost Metal. That's not an issue. I think we're good.
It's fair.
I think the catchphrase of this podcast is "There will be a podcast about that."
There will be a podcast. Like everything,
every topic.
Yep,
we have lots to say.
So we will see you all next time.
Peace.
Bye.
Don't forget Navani colon best colon in the comments below.
70 Shard does not endorse that message.
Our does.
What a thing.
Let's just do this.
No. Okay. Stay up there, all right? If you're going to be up there, you got to stay up there.
Is she on top of your tower?
Yes.
But it's nice and warm.
She loves it up there. Thankfully, it's liquid cooled, so it doesn't need all of the fans. Which, I used to get 2K laptops. Okay, this is going to be a problem.
It's either a cat or like eldritch monstrosities. It's like, tentacles going into view.
I was chilling with like Horizon, and she was,
I know the tail is a lot. There we go. We tucked it to the other side. Hopefully she'll keep it over there.
All right.
Dalish, I'm telling you, put the tail back.
All right.
Naughty.
I don't know if you guys could see the sparkling happening.
I
She's
saw it.
sniffing the light, and her collar is like reflecting.
I figured
I
that
was
was her.
wondering
Yeah.
what that was.
Yeah.
I was wondering.
like,
It's like,
it's gotta be
why is there a
kitty
spotlight
collar.
on your face?
yeah, it's just like,
It's not a truth
Hopefully-
watcher. It's not a misspren.
yeah, that's my misprint, guys.